Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Municipal Land Use Board meeting. It's Wednesday, May 25th, 2022. I'll ask all rise to salute the flag. Colin, why don't you, nope, it's over here.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll ask everybody just to stay stood and just a moment of silence for the folks over in Texas that were massacred yesterday. Very sad story in our country. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Roll call, please.
I have to read the open public.
Oh, yep,
comments.
please.
This meeting of the Municipal Land Use Board of the Borough of River Edge is being held in compliance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act and associated regulations. Notice of this meeting was published in the Bergen Record on January 8, 2022, posted on the front doors of Borough Hall and posted on the borough's website and made available for review in the board clerk's office. A copy of the agenda for this meeting was made available for review on the borough's website near the posting of the meeting notice and in the board clerk's office. Please silence all cell phones and wait to be recognized by the chairperson during the meeting. When making a public comment, please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address for the record.
Thank you. Now roll call, please.
Mr. Mayor is excused.
He is.
Mr. Caslin is also excused.
He is.
Ms. Boland? Here. Mr. Merman?
Here.
Mr. Pfeffer is excused. Mr. Cray?
Here.
Mr. Arkelian?
Here.
Councilman Kinigo is excused tonight. Mr. Gibbons?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
And Mr. Bustede.
Here.
Also present are myself, Marina Steinland, Tom Behrens, our board planner. And for the record, Mr. Esposito and Mr. Bustede will be seated to vote tonight.
Welcome, everybody. Just a little quick housekeeping. I'd like to welcome Colin Bustede to our board.
Thank
We're
you.
looking forward to having you aboard, and I think you'll really enjoy being up here. It's an exciting part of watching the town build and so forth. And of course, if you have any questions, everybody up here that you see has been here for a while, and we're here to help and get you acclimated to it. So welcome.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank Lou Grasso, who was a member of our group, and apparently is no longer, and we wish him well. And he was a very active and knowledgeable member of the board, and he'll be missed. Okay. On that, we have the first order of business is the approval of minutes for 5/11/22. They've been sent to you via email. And are there any questions? Okay. I'm hearing none, so I have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do all in favor, or you want to do a roll call?
We can do all in favor, but I'll just list those who are not eligible to vote. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Merman, Councilman Kinigo, Mr. Esposito, and Mr. Bustede.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Motion passes. Okay, we have a memorialization for the Yeshiva of North Jersey.
That's
666.
not available.
That's not, oh, that's what was not available, okay. So that'll be sent on to the next meeting. Next up, we're having a public hearing on the amendment to the 2020 periodic reexamination report for the master plan and development regulations for the Borough of River Edge. So this board is governed by a number of items, but one of them in particular is called the master plan. And the master plan is set up through the mayor and council, and it comes to us for review periodically to see if we need to make any recommendations or changes, correct?
Yes.
So I'll let Ms. Stinley go from there.
Well, we had previously had several work sessions where the board recommended additional changes to the master plan. And so we had the board planner, Tom Behrens, prepare a reexamination report. This public hearing was duly noticed in accordance with the municipal land use law. We'll give our presentation and then allow public comment and any board discussion.
This evening, we have our planner, Tom Behrens, who will be giving the presentation. So the floor is yours, Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marina, do I need to be sworn or?
We can do that. Please raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, board members and members of the public. I'm Tom Behrens, the board planner with Burgess Associates. As the chairman mentioned, the municipal land use law, which generally governs land use policy and zoning ordinances in the state, requires that planning boards and land use boards prepare a reexamination report of the master plan and development ordinances once every 10 years. The board adopted its last reexamination report in October 2020, and we've prepared this amendment dated May 13th, 2022, to that report to primarily facilitate a number of proposed ordinance amendments which are intended to address a number of issues that the board has discussed over the last number of years. So essentially to modernize and update the current ordinance as its certain provisions are dated. And this would be the first step of the process, and the next step of the process would be coming up with specific ordinance language amendments to propose to the council, whereby it would be considered there and hopefully implemented into the ordinance. And just to give an overview of what some of those topics are, bear with me while I flip to them. They include taking a look at the current improved lot coverage requirements pertaining to single-family zones, the current fence and wall requirements, electric vehicle charging station requirements, definitions, permitted uses in certain zones, and generally a number of topics that aren't currently regulated. Again, just the ordinance being slightly dated. The document also addresses certain policy updates at the state level that have occurred since the adoption of the last plan in 2020, which include the legalization of recreational marijuana, as well as a new state requirement for any land use plan element that has to conduct a climate change hazard vulnerability assessment. So the next time the borough adopts a new land use plan element, that will be a requirement that has to be conducted at that time. And finally, we've provided a statement as required now by the state regarding public electric vehicle charging infrastructure, which basically says that the borough will consider a number of town-owned properties as required by the state. So it is a fairly straightforward document, just a few pages, and again, to supplement the 2020 document to facilitate these proposed ordinance amendments.
Please, I'm sorry, oh, it is on, okay. My hearing's.
No.
Go ahead.
So, I mean, it is, again, fairly straightforward. That is the gist of it, so I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any of the board members have any questions for our planner? We've discussed it at great length already. Nothing?
I have.
Yes, sir.
See, I'm back. I got a comment already. Mr. Behrens,
Yes, sir.
on number 13, the sign regulations,
Yes.
can we add some language now, just similar to, include, that it includes the continuation or the prohibition of billboards, freestanding stanchions, and neon signs.
Pursuant to state law, we can't prohibit billboards outright.
We do already, it's in our ordinance.
There's no
There's-
language in the ordinance that prohibits billboards.
Well, my understanding is that there's been a change at the federal level whereby for reasons of freedom of speech, you can't have an explicit prohibition outlawing billboards. It doesn't mean you have to permit them in the ordinance, but you can't specifically prohibit them either. That's my understanding. So I understand your point, but coming from
Lady Bird
above.
Johnson's gonna roll over in our grave now.
I hear you, and if you drive up and down Route 4, that's
That's why we're talking.
Uncle Sam, yeah.
So you're saying that we cannot legally prohibit?
You don't have to permit it, but you can't prohibit it, if that makes
Well,
sense.
can we add the language where it's a non-permitted use?
I think that would fall under a prohibition. I understand your point. Again, in zoning terms, things that aren't permitted are generally prohibited. But again, there are certain legal aspects at the federal level which might, there isn't much room, frankly, to do it in River Edge. And hopefully it doesn't come to us, but again, I don't think, there's certain things we can do and certain things we can't do, and that would be something that we can't do, is my understanding. I hear you. Trust me, I hear you.
Do we somehow prohibit them by having a limit on the size of signs?
That
Does
helps
that pretty
to
much rule
some
them out
degree.
because your sign can't be anywhere near that big?
It helps to some degree. I'll put it this way. The statement is broad enough where we can take a look at billboards, so when it comes time to drafting the ordinance language,
That's
we
what I
can
was
tackle as much as we can legally to
Okay.
limit that.
Suffice to say,
Right.
that when you go to write the actual ordinance, you will keep that in mind, please.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
That it?
Yeah, welcome home, Dick.
Welcome home.
Those are good comments. Appreciate it.
Okay, anybody else from the board, any questions? I'd like to entertain a motion to open to the public.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Folks, if you have any questions on what we've discussed tonight, this document has been put on the website for your review. Is that correct? Yep.
Yes.
So if you have any questions in the future, you want to go on the website, take a look at it, you can. It's reviewed every 5 years? 10 years? Every 10 years, so you got plenty of time. I see nobody wants to speak, so we're going to entertain to close to the public.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstained? Okay.
Then we'll just need a vote on whether to adopt the.
So at this point, I'll entertain a motion from the board to adopt the, as read.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second?
Roll call, please.
All right, Ms. Boland,
Yes.
Mr. Merman,
Yes.
Mr. Cray,
Yes.
Mr. Arkelian,
Yes.
Mr. Gibbons,
Yes.
Mr. Esposito,
Yes.
and Mr. Bustede.
Abstain.
Okay, just a few housekeeping items before we get started with the next hearing, or the continuation of the hearing. I'm going to set a curfew today at 10:30. If the presenter is in the midst of his presenting, I'm not going to stop him at 10:30, but we won't go on to the next professional until the next meeting, if we go that far. So, that being said, the next order of business is 915, I'm sorry?
We're still on this?
No, we're done.
Well, I got a question. We haven't closed that meeting yet. I have a question for the planner.
We just voted on it. We're talking about,
On this, where we have the general,
okay, please.
Mr. Behrens.
Yes.
Mr. Behrens, has the borough received the 2020 census?
I don't know if it's received it per se. It's generally available on the census website.
Well, you're the planner. Did we get it?
I have not seen a physical copy.
Okay, can you check on that? Because it's been like 2 years now.
I could see, I know there is data available online. Again, I don't know if they distribute it physically to every municipality. I don't know the policy, but it is available publicly, just at least at a minimum in electronic form. But yes, I can verify.
Have you reviewed the census?
Have I used it?
Reviewed what's available?
I believe I did for the 2020, actually probably wasn't available then.
Can, at the next
I'm not
meeting,
sure.
you give us a summary?
I could, yeah,
Okay, because as the board, we should know that
okay,
information.
very good, okay.
That good?
Yes.
Okay. And let the record show that Mr. Costa, our engineer, came in around 7:40. Okay. So in old business, we're going back to 915 Kindercomack Road LLC, AKA also known as Dunkin' Donuts, which was carried from 5/11/22. This is Block 206, Lot 4, the construction of a new Dunkin' Donuts with a drive-through. The bank building will remain. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Andy Del Vecchio, member of the firm of BD Padovano, on behalf
of the applicant this evening.
Mr. Delvecchio, as you can see, our police chief is here, and I'm sure he had a long day as it is. So if we can get to the traffic part or anything, so we can get him here, get him out of here early, that would be great. But I don't want to throw you off your game.
I can half accommodate that,
Okay.
and that half accommodation is, we're not covering traffic tonight because various of the traffic experts were not available. Mine was, some of the, either the objector or the board's traffic consultant was not available this evening, so we agreed not to cover traffic tonight, so the chief can go home early.
That's all right.
You want to stay? Chief, you're more than welcome. We love having you. We feel a lot safer. Okay, continue. I'm sorry, Mr. Delvecchio.
No worries at all. And I guess we should just, I heard the board's schedule for this evening. I don't anticipate getting anywhere near that curfew. Our intention tonight is to cover the revised architecture and the revised site plan drawings that resulted from our first hearing. So I have two witnesses intended for this evening, our architect and our engineer, both of whom have testified previously at the last hearing and have resubmitted updated plans, A, to accommodate the changes or comments that were made by the board, its consultants and professionals at the last meeting, and also to now pull the bank property or the bank building into the application and give you details on what the uses will be for that bank building. No cliffhanger here. We're proposing to divide the bank building into partially a bank for continued bank use, and the balance is intended to be occupied by a music school.
Okay.
And you'll hear more about those details from our witnesses this evening.
All right, and we have a new alternate who hasn't yet certified that he watched the previous hearing. So I'm just going to ask that he sit in the audience
Yep,
and
sure.
watch, so then at a later date he can certify and vote on the application.
I leave that to you. I would have no objection to that board member sitting and participating. He obviously can't vote until he listens and certifies to the transcript, but if there are questions, I am happy to treat him as a full-fledged
Okay.
board member this evening, but I leave that to your discretion.
All right, thank you.
All right, logistically, we probably should mark some of the updated documents, just so we have an updated exhibit list with your permission before we actually get to witnesses.
Yes,
And I
so
think we're up to A9.
let's see. I had pre-marked exhibits A1 through A7, and then another one was marked at the last hearing.
Yeah, it was a
A8.
colored,
Okay.
right.
Yep.
So starting with A9 with today's magic date, whatever that is.
25.
25, thank you. We have the minor subdivision plat consisting of one sheet prepared by Lakeland Survey dated April 8, 2022. And I'm happy to provide a typed copy to council after the meeting as well.
Thank you.
A10 is the preliminary and final site plan and minor subdivision plan consisting of 13 sheets prepared by L2A, bearing the last revision date of April 8. A11 is the updated stormwater management report prepared by L2A, bearing the last revision date of April 8, 2022. A12 is the soil moving plan consisting of one sheet prepared by L2A, bearing the last revision date of April 8, 2022. A13 is the updated traffic impact statement prepared by Dolan and Dean, dated April 6, 2022. A14 is the proposed alterations for the bank building and music school, consisting of two sheets prepared by GK&A Architects, dated April 11, 2022. A15 is the proposed floor plan, proposed elevation, site signage detail for the Dunkin' Donuts, consisting of four sheets prepared by GK&A Architects, last revised April 6, 2022. A16 is the landscape architect plans prepared by L2A, consisting of two sheets. I'll have to double check on the date of that one and fill that in.
Mr. Delvecchio, do you have a spare traffic impact statement that you can share with our chief of police so he has it?
I don't have one this evening, but I'm happy to submit one if.
Either that, or I'll just give Mike mine, and you can just, I'll get it from
Yeah,
the. from
I
the
mean, I'm
board
happy to
secretary.
submit an extra copy. Just make myself a note. Okay, with those marked, I'd like to recall our project architect. Gary, if you would.
Good evening.
As Gary gets set up, I'll give him a few moments so he doesn't feel rushed. It's different when we're back in the real world and not Zooming. Just a couple of reminders, Gary was previously sworn, qualified, and remains under oath this evening as we proceed with additional testimony. So Gary, just please guide it accordingly. And from a foundation standpoint, you were in the room as I marked exhibits, some of which were attributed to GK&A Architects.
Yes.
And-
Marking those, and I will refer to them in my testimony.
To the extent those exhibits are attributed to GK&A, they were prepared by you or under your supervision?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Where should we best place this?
Well, don't put them in front of the chief.
I'll take a nap.
So why don't you, right where that one is, you could set it up right next to the podium, and this way everybody can see, and if they, feel free if you want to, if you need, audience, if you need to see it, and you want to walk up and take a look, you're welcome to.
I'm sorry, which exhibit is this?
We'll share. It's too big otherwise.
Okay.
That's the interior.
That's the interior plan and elevations and signage details for the Dunkin' Donuts with a revision date of 4/6/22.
Okay. So, Gary, if you recall when you last testified, you did testify to a set of plans for the proposed Dunkin' Donuts, the nature of the use, the configuration of the drive-through. My intention is not to have you repeat that testimony this evening, but to proceed with telling the board what's changed on the plans from what we last appeared, and point out those changes on the drawings so that the board can appreciate what they are and where they occur.
Sure. Okay. Okay, the plans that I'm referring to are my drawings A1 through A4, which are the interior plan, and exterior elevations and signage detail. Revision date of 4/6/22, and it's exhibit 8 to today's date 5/21. The first sheet, A1, is the floor plan. Basically, nothing has changed on the floor plan relative to the movement from the site. Return to,
Gary, before we flip, I do want to just remind everybody where, can you just remind everybody where the drive-through service area is, both exterior and internally, and also where the pedestrian service window is proposed? Because that's going to tie into the site plan stuff later on.
yep, absolutely. The plan is oriented to the front of the building, to the bottom facing interconnect. To the left-hand side is the drive-through window for the vehicles. There's a payment window in the rear, a pickup window in the front. The cars, if you recall, or you'll see on the site plan, come in off Kinderkmack and circumnavigate around the building to the back side of the drive-through windows. And the walk-up window for pedestrians is on the front.
Okay.
To the bottom of the plan.
Thank you.
I got a little confused last time, if you remember, east, west, north. I labeled it wrong, I corrected it on the elevations on this go-around, so.
I'll still get it wrong, so I'm
I'm
gonna,
just gonna refer to front and side.
Exactly.
because I'll get it wrong. Like I said, the plan hasn't changed. The revisions that we made to the elevations, I'll start on the front, which is the bottom left-hand side of A2. I previously had that labeled south, but that's actually east elevation facing Smithsonian. Some of the changes that we were able to do after consulting with Duncan Corporate in terms of branding strategy was to reduce the size of the Duncan sign. Previously, we were asking for a variance for the square footage of the sign. We were able to reduce that, so now your maximum test sign size is 20 square feet, and the proposed revised sign is 17.35 square feet. Previously, to the top of the sign, it was a little bit higher. I don't remember what I had, but I was able to lower it to 20 feet, 1.5 inch. It's still a variance, as 18 feet to the top of the sign is your maximum, but we did make it closer to compliant and lower. That's the major change on the front elevation. On the top of the page, which was labeled the east elevation, now it's corrected as the north elevation. There was a branding wall on the side that faced the parking lot that said River Edge runs on Duncan. That was removed. Removing the variance for that sign. The DD letters that are on the side, we are maintaining or proposing to maintain those letters, but they are in compliance with the size and height restrictions for signage, although the sign itself is a variance, as we're allowed to have the one on the front of the building. We also added, and the bubble to the top, I added full screening of all the HVAC units with colored acoustic screens that match the coloring of the building. So on all four sides, you won't be able to see the rooftop air conditioning units in this bubble on there. We've also eliminated the pylon sign and created a monument sign. And the pylon sign and monument sign are both variances, but we drove up and down Kindergamack, and almost every building on both sides have a pylon sign. So we felt that was more in context with the neighborhood.
every building had a pylon or monument sign? Monument sign.
Instead of that sign. That sign is proposed at 25 square feet, and the height of the sign is 5 feet off the ground, so it's very in keeping with the neighborhood. And it's very, the previous sign, the pylon was much more like a Sunoco. Pole very high up in the air. This is very low in the landscaping. I'm going to turn to page A3. On this elevation, the elevation on the top of A3 was the west elevation, now it's corrected a little left south. The screen on the top here. The reason to put the sign off of there. To look. Let me grab my notes.
Mr. DeVecchio, are you going to have a separate sign engineer or sign professional presenting with you with colors and everything else, or?
No, Gary is able to speak to all of the details
Okay.
for the sign. To the extent there are any questions, please fire away.
Okay,
One of my exhibits is signage as well. So.
okay, thank you.
So on the south elevation, which is the drive-through portion of the building, above the pickup window, we had another DD Dunkin' Donuts sign. We've removed that, eliminating another variance for that signage. And on the rear, which is the bottom of this page, basically, we've just indicated the acoustic enclosure for the rooftop units. The next page, and the last page in this exhibit is A4, my A4, which is all the signage details. We clarified on the top left, previously we indicated all of the directional signs would be chosen from, that could be chosen from. It's a little confusing, so we crossed out all the ones and only indicated the ones that we would be keeping, which would be see you soon, welcome back, and drive-through with an arrow pointing to the drive-through. So there's no Dunkin' specific, it doesn't say Dunkin' Donuts pointing in this direction. It just gives a direction throughout the site of where to go. There's a Century bar that says drive-through. This is a variance. I'm not sure, a lot of the signage was, I don't even call it signage, directionals. There's no indication that this is a Dunkin' Century, but it keeps trucks from ripping the overhang off of the building. So we have this is considered a variance. There's a couple order boards and menus that are facing, they're behind the building on the side, so they're not even facing the roadway, they're facing the roadway in the back. There's the new pylon sign right in the middle on the bottom, same pylon sign, I apologize, monument sign, which is it's a Dunkin' with a drive-through, which you'll see on the site plan where it's located. That is it for this exhibit.
And Gary, the colors of the sign are each of these signs are noted in the details for
They're
each of the
noted in
signs.
details, and I have the color exhibit.
We might as well talk about the signs since the natural place to cover it. And if you could just identify that exhibit for us.
Yeah, this is exhibit A14, my R1.
Signs tonight.
Which is dated 10/22/21 with a revision of 4/6/22. The drawing on the top is the Pinnacomac elevation facing the roadway, and the drawing to the right is the right-hand side or the east elevation facing the parking lot. All the other signs have been removed. In general, of course, we would like to have a sign on the front of the building and facing the parking lot, so you know where the entrance is. The entrance is off of the side elevation, there's one on the front as well, but the parking is on the side. The DD is magenta and orange. The Dunkin' is orange. You can see all the different colors. I could go through the materials if the board so chooses.
They're generally channel cut, internally illuminated letters.
That's correct. Yep, with the exception of the walk-up lettering on the orange overhang for the walk-up window in front of the building that is just white lettering, non-illuminated.
Non-illuminated.
I go through the signage variances, I kind of touched upon.
You don't need to. The planner will cover the variances when we get to them.
Okay. So, last exhibit I have is the existing bank building.
I'm sorry, the previous colored exhibit, what number was that? A14. Was that submitted previous?
No, that's not correct.
Yeah. A8,
Previously submitted.
so
Well-
from last time.
Right.
Okay.
While you're on that, yeah, can you pass that around to the board, please?
I'm going to change it to A8.
Did you revise, before you do that, did you revise that exhibit since it was A8?
Yes.
So I think we should probably mark it as a new exhibit. We'll call it A8 as revised through, and if you give me the date.
It's revised 4/6/22.
And that would then become A17. Thank you, Counselor.
So I labeled it previously A8. now
Make it A17. Yep.
And then when we're finished, if you can put it on the easel in the back so the members of the public can see it?
Sorry, All right, so, yeah, I did get these back. So the bank building is the A14.
Okay, thank you.
The bank building drawing, this is the existing bank that's on the site, or previous bank, I should say, 'cause it's not a bank. I labeled the drawing BM1, although I wanted a BM2, it's labeled B2. But the idea was bank music. So the
good.
So the orientation is at the bottom of the building is Kindertrack, so that's the front of the building, the existing vestibule for the left-hand side is existing drive-through lanes for the existing bank.
Still wrong.
To the rear is the parking, and there's a driveway to the right. The existing facilities off-site to the right. We're proposing to split the vestibule and split the building right down the middle. The left-hand side would become another bank. You can see the customer area, full ADA bathrooms, teller area, and again, to the left would have the drive-through, existing drive-through functioning again. To the right of that demolished wall is the music school. There's a number of private rooms, offices, again, 2 ADA restrooms, multi-purpose room, or, so family members can get together. The only real changes to this floor plan is the exterior of the building inside, all egress and entry doors to the rear parking lot, and then secondary egress door out of the multi-purpose room to the right-hand side of the plan.
Are those egress doors for emergency egress, or are they intended for general public use?
This is emergency egress to the right, and multi-purpose, and then the doors in the rear are for general public, or to access when they come off the parking lot, so they have to walk around the building. So the second sheet, B22,
Before you jump to that, Gary, the floor plan as you described it is essentially a repurposing and reuse of the existing space. It is not being enlarged by way of footprint or otherwise as proposed.
no.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you would
Exactly
just,
the same.
okay, if you would just continue then, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, it's fine. I'll speak about the square footages. The proposed bank is 1,936 square feet, and the proposed music store tenant, music school tenant is 2,221 square feet. So on sheet A2, the top elevation is the Mac Road elevation. Basically, it's existing brick building, white trim, white gated panels, screening the air conditioning units. There's a asphalt shingle roof. All of that is proposing to remain the same. Fresh paint and repairs as needed. Basically, we're proposing 2 signs on the front of the building, the music school sign and the bank, which will be just for each side of the existing vestibule in the front that's going to be split. Both of these signs will meet the signage ordinance, less than 18 square feet, 12 and a half feet to the height, and only projecting 5 inches from the top. The bottom elevation, you can see the 2 doors being, it looks like a third door, that's the electric meters or something, the utility closet on the outside. And that's the elevation stays the same for this building.
The drive-through is not being enlarged or expanded in any way. There was a window servicing the drive-through that is currently boarded up that'll be reinstalled and reactivated.
Yes, and there's a boarded up ATM on the front of the building as well that will be reactivated.
And do you have a general understanding of what the hours of operation and the occupancy levels of the proposed building is?
Yes, I had an opportunity to speak with the owner. The bank building is proposing 8:30 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. Saturday, 8:30 to 1, closed on Sunday. The ATM on the exterior would be open 24/7. Drive-through lanes, okay, so the first drive-through window closest to the building would be serviced by a teller. And then another ATM would be installed at the second drive-through lane, so it'd be a drive-up covered ATM on the second. There will be approximately 4 to 5 employees during peak. And they're anticipating 2 to 4 customers inside and 4 to 5 at the drive-through per hour. What their projections are for the bank. The music school hours would be 12 to 8, 12 noon to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. Saturday 9 to 3, Sunday 12 to 3. Teachers and staff will be 5 at any given time. Students will be 4 at any given time. Parents do not wait at the school. Drop off and pick up the situation. They're in free. Like I said, the multi-purpose room, they were speaking a little bit about some of the I shouldn't say performances because there's not a room large enough. There's no performances for the public. Sometimes they'll have some students performing together in the multi-purpose room.
Understood. Thank you.
I'm sorry, could you please repeat the hours and the employees for the school?
The school, Monday through Friday, 12 to 8. Saturday, 9 to 3. Sunday, 12 to 3. Teachers, average of 5.
Mr. DeBecca, you want to give this to him?
Oh, sure.
We'll make sure we get everything.
And students, it says 4 at any given time.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any additional questions for Gary at this time. I think he's covered the changes that we've made since we last appeared on the architectural front. I make them available to you and the board's professionals for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. So now it's time for the board members to question. So I'm going to start on my right with Mr. Esposito.
Yes,
Have any questions?
right now, no.
Mr. Cray?
I have one question. When we spoke during the original meeting, the plan at that time was there was going to be Dunkin' Donuts and the bank. And there was a lot of discussion that it's going to be a bank. And now it's going to be a bank and a dance studio. Is there a bank that is going to take that space and a dance studio that's going to take that space? Because, you know, after the discussion last time, the question was, what if it's not a bank? And the answer is, well, then they'll have to come here in front of the board again to get approval. The problem is, at that point, you're pregnant. So, you know, you're coming for an approval in a space that is already maxed out on whatever parking is available. So I guess my question is, we're talking about a bank and a dance studio, or a
Music school.
music studio now. Are those identified tenants that are going to be moving in, or is it we're going to try to find a bank?
No, those are identified tenants.
Question about the signage. Basically, we're looking at 3 different signs: a monument sign, the Dunkin' Donuts sign, and then the DD sign. All 3 signs need some sort of variance. Is that correct?
Short answer is it depends how you look at it, but yes. The DD sign on the one side, if that was the first sign, it complies. But because of the existence of the other signs, depending on which one you call the first sign, it triggers a variance.
Well, or the other one has 2 variances.
Correct.
So at the end of the day, we have 3 signs and 3 variances.
Yes.
That's all I have right now.
Should I come back to you, Mr. Morgan? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go to Ms. Boland.
Okay. Who do we talk to regarding the queuing of the drive-through? Is this,
That'd be traffic.
that would be traffic, okay. As far as the signs go, I'm not sure that welcome back and see you soon are directional signs. You already are asking for variances. I don't know why you need, they're small, but why you even need them.
I think because we have a variance for the drive-through window, everything associated with it is automatically considered a variance.
No, I'm saying, why do you need it?
Why do you need direction to say which way to go?
No, this says, welcome back and see you soon at the entrance. It's an entrance.
Yeah.
I feel like you shouldn't be,
Yeah, we might
going-
be able to give up the welcome.
that's just more signage where there's already too much signage. The south side of the Dunkin' Donuts has a note on the plan that says sign number 3, but I believe you took off the sign for the southern side, is that right? I don't know what sign number 3 is.
It's bubbled, Gary, on the right-hand side of the drawing.
No, it's on the schematic where you're showing the Dunkin' Donuts, top left corner there. To the Dunkin' Donuts, to the left of the Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
It says sign number 3 where there shouldn't be any signs. It looks like it's at the window.
Going down the,
No,
You're looking at different,
I
you're
think
looking
you're
at different
looking at
pages.
right here. Oh,
You're on the site, are you on the site plan?
I'm on the site plan. C3.
oh, no, so,
The architectural plans will control for the signage.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. So, but there is no sign on the southern part of Dunkin' Donuts, am I right?
I want to be clear which elevation you're speaking of.
When you're driving, so the left of the Dunkin' Donuts, looking at the Dunkin'
Over
Donuts,
the drive-through windows.
over the drive-through windows.
Yeah, that's what, you had removed the signage here, this blow up is for the closure of the units, but we had a DD sign on the
Okay.
front portion of the south.
But there's nothing proposed now.
That's been removed.
Okay. That's all I have for signs.
Mr. Gibbons?
I just had a question about the music studio. You said you have an actual tenant. Is that a tenant that's actually been established? They did this somewhere else? I don't need to know who it is, but it's an established business, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. Just have a question about the numbers that you're talking about, because I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces, and you're saying there's only going to be
When you say
4
spaces,
students.
you're referring to-
Lesson studio 1, 2, studio.
Right, so each room is specializing in a different,
So one's a drum, one's a guitar kind of
Right.
thing.
Like, drum's gonna be insulated, extra insulated, and violin might not be insulated so much, so it depends on string, you know.
Okay. I'm just looking at the amount of spaces that you have, and you're saying there's going to be like 4 kids in there at a time. Just seems very low to me.
At one time.
Right, that just seems very low to me.
Yeah, but-
You know, if you're having a school, I would think they would probably have more than that
Well,
on a Thursday night, you know. Just looking at the, you know, getting around to the parking situation of just that we have enough for the
I
amount of
understand,
people
but
that are
that's
physically going to be there.
based on an existing business, and that's.
And those are numbers that they've
Yeah, that's the numbers
typically
they
have.
provided to us.
Okay.
Do you know if the existing business is operating in the same square footage, or is this gonna be expanding the space?
Same square footage, I'm told.
That's all I have for now.
Save the best for last, Mr. Merman.
Yeah, let's start with signs. I agree with Ms. Boland's comment in the removal of that one sign. I'm also looking at another monumental sign, monument sign, rather. Dunkin' drive-through. Where is that placed? Your monument sign that says on the face Dunkin' drive-through. Where is that located?
Oh, where it's located. I'll have to refer to a site plan.
Bill, do you have one that we can borrow for a moment? And if it was previously marked, let me know. If not, we'll mark it.
I don't think it's previously marked.
Identify it then if we can, and I think the marking's gonna be A18. Colored site plan by L2A. Can you just give us the date, Bill?
Sure. This is drawing C-03 site plan. It's dated 4/8/22. It replicates the site plan that was submitted as part of the application. The only thing that's different is it's colorized, and we added the proposed landscaping for presentation.
Okay.
So, to the left of this site plan is the Dunkin' Donuts. This is the existing bank building.
Bank?
There is the drive in and exit for the Dunkin' Donuts. There's the walkway that leads you across the pedestrian area that's striped from Kinderkamak, just to the right of that.
Okay.
Within the property boundary is the
So-
monument sign.
It's in the front yard.
It's in the front yard. Yes.
What purpose does it serve?
It aids in vehicles going down Kinderkamak to see where the entrance is.
Well, I think you should eliminate it. You don't need it. It's the same logic as Ms. Boland.
Okay, I hear you.
But you agree? Thank you.
I don't agree, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
I think it's essential, especially when you're going down the roadway, to see the building in advance.
Now with these big double Ds, everybody knows that. It's
Well,
like the
with
twin
all-
arches, okay? Double D.
I mean, with all this landscaping that we're
Oh.
proposing, and the existing trees, when I went down Kinderkamak,
Will
I
you,
just drove
will you,
past it.
will you remove it or not?
I don't think that's the one sign, other than the DD, that Duncan Corporate said has to be here, is that pylon
I-
sign. We could eliminate other signs as like the directional signs, but
Can you make a decision now?
I can't make it, I would have to ask
Okay.
corporate.
So I object
We'll,
to that sign.
we'll take it back. We hear the comment, we understand it.
Okay.
We'll take it back and see what we can and can't do.
I don't think it's serving any real purpose, okay? Because you're going down a driveway. The whole driveway is to drive in, basically. That's
This is
just another,
on-
that's
this is
just
on the
another.
roadway inside, between our drive aisle and Kinderkamak. So you will see this before you will see the building sign.
It's merely a front yard sign. It
Yes.
says Dunkin' Donuts, which
That's
is
correct.
really unnecessary.
Well, we've eliminated the south side Dunkin' Donuts sign, so coming from the south, you don't know what the building is anymore.
The sign is facing the street?
It's parallel to the street, perpendicular to the street, so as you're coming down the roadway, it's
You
facing.
do have the DDs on the window side, correct?
There's a DD on the parking lot side, facing the bank building.
There's one on the,
There's one facing Kinderkamak,
yeah, and there's one on the south side.
parallel to it. There's not one on the south side. We've removed that to eliminate a variance.
I still think it should go. Okay, you're gonna take it under advisement, you told me.
I will take I will
Okay.
speak to Duncan Corporate, but as I mentioned earlier, I drove
I-
up that road and every single business.
Let me
on
be
Kinderkamak
complimentary,
has a pylon,
okay?
monument sign.
May be complimentary. I compliment the applicant for its revised signs, which eliminates basically what could be classified as sign pollution. Okay? I compliment you, and I appreciate it. I would just like to see those other two gone. Okay, moving along.
Could I ask one question briefly? The proposed monument side that says Dunkin' drive-through is on the same side of the building as the proposed DD sign?
No.
No.
I think the best thing to do, Gary, is
Point
you
to
narrate and I'll point. How's that?
So the front of Kinderkamak Road has Duncan written on it and walk-up window. That's the one that's
Yeah.
parallel to Kinderkamak. To the right-hand side, which is the parking lot side and the other front door where most people will park and go in, has the DD on it. The previous side, which is the drive-through window on the south side, we've removed that
Yeah.
DD to eliminate a variance as requested by the board. The monument sign is right here, between the driveway and the Kinderkamak Road, perpendicular to the road.
So it's on the same side of the building as the DD sign?
Well, the DD sign's here,
And the,
this is here,
okay, thank you.
and the Duncan sign is like that all over the building.
Okay,
The idea is as you're coming, especially now as you're going north, this is not turned on. I'm not turning it on.
Battery's
probably dead. I
had it on.
You won't be able, there's no signage on this side anymore. When you're coming north, coming from the south and going north, you can't see it until you're on top of it. The idea of a pylon sign or a monument sign is, as you're going down the road, you have time to figure out the turn, where to turn.
Okay.
I rest my case. You're going to go back and reconsider it. Correct. All right. Pull up your colored rendering there. Why does this look different? Just the upper half, the walk-up window is in the lower left-hand corner, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What title do you have on that elevation?
South elevation, Mac Road,
You have south.
yeah,
Okay.
which is
There
mislabeled.
was a question as to whether.
Yeah, we can't seem to get that right.
The real comment.
Yeah, that should be north.
I think it's east.
East.
The,
That should be east.
The drive-throughs are south. Maybe West Marina, 17 south, on the right-hand side, get a compass.
I prefer just saying north-south, but, I mean, right front.
so, but it is a south elevation.
This is the north elevation on the top of the page.
That's the window. That's the street side.
This is the street side.
Okay, so that's the street side. So if I'm coming down, if I'm going north on Kinderkamak, and I didn't want to go back to this, but now that I see your rendering, I do. Relative to the monument sign,
Yes.
that big sign in the upper right-hand corner there is more than overrules and serves more than the purpose of what you were telling me you wanted the monument sign for.
I understand.
Okay,
I understand the
so
comment.
take that into your consideration,
We'll go back.
please. Okay, my real comment.
You said that before.
Well, I had to regress.
Continue.
I need to practice, it's been a while. All right, let's talk about the walk-up window. And you can leave that up there if you want.
Which, the site plan?
Your walk-up window
Yeah.
that you're which is well illustrated there in the upper elevation. We had a discussion when you originally proposed it as to possibly moving it for safety reasons. You've since either left it or moved it back to that corner where it is. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it is there,
That's where it is.
and I can understand why you have it there operational. It's perfectly clear operational. But when you look at where that window is located, foot traffic going, and if you want to put up your site plan, which, whatever, you're showing too many things. The foot traffic on the sidewalk going from south to north to arrive at that window is going to walk down the driveway. The driveway is both ingress and egress. So the poor pedestrian is going to get it from two sides, number one.
Why would you walk it in a driveway when it's
All right, well then walk me north.
If I could just interject here, I think we're getting into pedestrian movements, circulation, and it's something our site engineer is better equipped to answer.
I understand, but it overlaps. Okay,
He can talk about the building aspect of it. I don't think he's qualified to talk about the pedestrian movement to and from the window.
I understand. Okay, so I reserve comment on where your window is located based on site safety. Let's leave it at that, okay?
Understood, and, you know,
Okay.
Bill
Yep.
is up next. He's hearing it.
Yeah, we got too many components here, that's the problem.
No worries.
Okay. Okay, so I guess as far as my comments regarding the architect and the signage are pretty much made at this point.
Well noted.
Thank you.
So I have a question. You brought in some new testimony this evening about the bank building and so forth. Is that part of this hearing tonight, or you have signage for that? Have you?
We've indicated on the architectural plans, the signage. At this point, we're only proposing two conforming signs, one bank, one music school, and they are shown on the architectural plans.
And there'll be no monument sign or exit for the bank?
We are not proposing anything other than what's shown on the plans now. If those tenants, choose to seek additional signs at a later point, they may do that, but we're not asking for approval of them this evening or as part of this application.
Okay, and I know it's not part of his testimony, but are you going to need additional parking or additional parking variance or anything for the new tenants in that building?
I think our next
or-
witness can deal with the parking
Okay.
calculation and counts for you. Those are all on the site plan, and we can cover those.
And Tom, you're aware of this, that they were going to dual tenant that building?
They've submitted plans, floor plans for that building and elevations, so I believe that was submitted several weeks ago. So to answer your point, or your question, yes,
Okay. Anybody else have anything, further questions? If not, I'm going to make,
I'm sorry, can I get?
sure, Tom, oh, yeah, I should have called on you first, I'm sorry, Tom.
I have a couple of just technical questions, but one question I just wanted to get out there was, after listening to the testimony, was I took another look at the ordinance, which permits, I believe permits the bank, certainly the Dunkin' Donuts. We obviously know, or it's my opinion that the drive-throughs require a D1 use variance, but the question of the music school, the ordinance is very particular, and it explicitly says that dance studios and music studios are permitted, and I just wanted to make sure that we had some testimony that qualified that use as permitted or not, I suppose.
Well, it is proposed as a music school, which is basically a studio. There won't be any dance in there, but it is
Right, obviously.
intended for music. Practice, teaching, space can be rented, because it is acoustic, it will be acoustically prepared, the rooms, so you can record yourself, so technically it is a studio
There will be recording equipment?
for individual use, so they'll be able to rent the space. Mostly bring your own recording equipment. It's not intended, it's a school as well. It's not intended for a major band to come and record an album or something. Individuals to have a learning, so that you record yourself, you play it back, or you would give it to, like, I know my daughters are in marching band, so they have to record themselves during certain things, especially during times of COVID. They had to play a song, record themselves, email it to their instructor.
Okay, thank you. And I offer that not to derail the application, but just as a matter of clarity, again, just so that we get off on the right foot as the application proceeds. So, I don't know if the board has any comments. The borough ordinance as written doesn't define music studio, so I would offer to the board if, they have enough information to either qualify it as a music studio or perhaps a subsequent expert of the applicant will be able to do that.
Okay.
Just throwing that out there.
And I noticed that there were Sunday hours. Does that violate any ordinances from the Borough of River Edge?
Not to my knowledge, but I can verify that.
Okay.
There's that. Moving on to, I guess, my technical questions for the architect. I'll start with the Duncan building. It was difficult, at least for me to tell, based on the elevations, that the screening would be on all four sides. Can you verify that that is the case?
Yes, we're going to screen all four sides.
Okay. Do the elevations depict that? Okay. I'm not sure I saw it particularly on at least the front elevation.
The front elevation is blocked by the monolith that had except above.
What about on the left side of that monolith?
That would be the drive-through side.
I'm just talking about, so that would be the southeast corner of the building, so if you're driving north on Kinderkamak Road. I guess my point is the equipment should be screened on all four sides. That's just a blanket statement.
Indicated on the
Right.
top left. For the screen.
Right.
In the rear, that's the screen.
Right.
Front, you could, so this is the rear of the building, opposite interconnect, see the unit behind the monolith. But we were a good screen all four sides anyway, we just didn't draw it because you can't see it.
Okay, as long as they're on all four sides, that would be my recommendation. I echo some of the comments about the signage. You know, the front sign that's one thing. The northerly DD sign, you know, it's not a corner lot. I think we'll need some testimony from one of your experts to justify that, perhaps the planner. Obviously, the monument sign, while there may be some up and down Kinderkamak Road, there is an explicit policy, and I believe the board has made a conscious effort in the last number of applications to not permit freestanding signs. So, again, a justification will have to be provided at some point as to why this particular use and within the context of the site would warrant that. Just bear with me while I read through my notes here. Staying on the Duncan building, was there any consideration toward, and we don't regulate design, and design, of course, is subjective, but trying to have the building match surrounding buildings, essentially, be more in keeping with development along Kinderkamak Road in that particular area of the borough? And I guess I would refer to, you know, whether or not a pitched roof would be something that would be suitable for that site, and perhaps even the building materials, recognizing that Duncan has its, you know, orange and purples, whatever. Was there any thought given to that?
No, there was not. I generally don't do pitched roofs on commercial buildings because of the rooftop units. You would have to put ground-mounted transformers.
I mean, I'll note that I mean, I've seen Dunkin' Donuts buildings like that, even newer ones, so again, we don't regulate that. I'm just throwing it out there for the
We
board
hadn't
to consider.
considered that. I did drive the location. I did look at neighboring buildings. I didn't consider the color because looking at our color rendering,
Okay.
it's not too much. It's more of an accent color.
Right.
Bright, over-the-top colors of Dunkin's past. They are much more mature. Sidings, cementitious panels, and this cement siding. So I think it's more in keeping with the architecture of the neighborhood.
Okay. I'm not criticizing your building. Again, just the extent to which it's consistent with, for instance, I believe there's a building across the street, Tudor style. There's a, you know, funeral home a couple properties away. That's, you know, sort of a, I know colonial is kind of a generic term, but, you know, pitched roof buildings, I guess is my point.
Dunkin' Donuts right on the corner, that's a little bit more orange.
There's also a building on the site that has a pitched roof. So, anyway, just, we don't need to harp on that, just offering my 2 cents. Moving on to the second building, which would be the bank and music school building. Just an observation is that it appears that the music schools, studio, what have you, only has a front entrance, and I'm wondering if it should have possibly a rear entrance, because that's where the parking is. So, I'm willing to admit I may have missed that, but,
Can you point to it, Gary?
Yeah, that was part of my testimony, that we'll be splitting the vestibule in the front,
right,
creating 2 new vestibules. In the rear, we'll be cutting a new door. Actually, there's an existing door into the music studio that would be reversing the swing for ADA, and the second door into the
but,
and we added a additional egress door to the right-hand side of the multipurpose room.
if I'm reading it correctly, it looks like that door, the rear door with access to the music school, it goes in through what's referred to as a break room, or labeled as a break room. So students would have access to that door and would go through the break room? If that's the case, then that addresses my concern. It just seemed that would be more of an employee-only area.
No,
Okay.
it's more, refreshments.
Okay.
It'll be appointment only for students, it's not like
Right.
blocking here. We'll have to make an appointment for the teacher and meet them there.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for this applicant.
Tom, being that that's being converted from a bank to a school, are there any sprinkler regulations that are going to have to go into effect?
That would be a construction code question, and frankly, that's beyond my I don't know if it would be required. I really don't know.
Gary, the architect, I'm sure can answer that.
Based on the use and square footage, we're below the requirement for sprinkling the building.
Okay. Mr. Costa?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think there's any questions with the architectural. I think, excuse me, some of the board questions hit some of the points. And again, I concur with Mr. Merman as far as the walk-up window and the proximity to the drive-through and if you're coming south and walking. It's interesting. People walk to the closest location. So they're probably not going to go past to walk across in the crosswalk and then back south. More than likely, they are going to cut across the driveway. So you probably have to look at that a little more closely to figure out how you get people in and out of their pedestrians and vehicles to make sure that you don't have conflicts. But again, I think there's, Andy, from what you said earlier, I guess there's going to be a traffic expert to discuss that.
Yes,
Site,
as well as our site engineer.
site, yeah.
So, and again, Mr. Merman picked it up. The way the building is designed in the interior, that's where the logical location is for the walk-up. The question becomes the exterior, whether or not it
It
works
can handle it.
safely. And that's for them to prove their case and wait for the testimony, and then we can comment at that point.
Okay. I'm not hearing any more questions from the board. I'm going to go to Mr. Bastide real quick before we open to the public. Do you have any questions?
Sure, just maybe two quick questions. The sign on top of the building, when you say it's going to be screened 4 ways, does that mean that it's facing forward like a box on top of the building with
Oh,
four?
the screening for the air conditioning unit?
I'm sorry, the sign on top of the building, is it just facing one way?
Can you put the elevation of the building up, Gary? Let's start with that.
Yeah, that sign on top there, that's just strictly facing,
That's, yes,
South, right?
correct. This is the side of it.
yep, okay. Will that be illuminated, like, only during business hours
Yes.
or 24 hours a day?
It's generally shuts off on a timer an hour past the close of business.
Okay, and is the plan to, did you say what the hours of how we're gonna be? Do you plan on being 24 hours?
I don't know, no. I would have to concur with my client. I don't know the hours for the Dunkin'.
But if it was 24 hours, it would be on 24 hours?
Or we could shut the sign off, or I could ask.
Okay, I mean, that just might be something, I don't know, if you want the sign lit all night.
I think Mr. Bastide raised some good points, and I think we do need testimony about the hours. You may have provided that at the first meeting, I
Yeah,
don't
I don't
recall.
have my notes for that, but it is 5 to 11.
5 to 11, okay.
So the sign would come on at like 4:30 and go off at like really half hour after, or we can just set it to 11.
Okay. And then the second question is the pylon and the monument sign.
Yeah.
There is no pylon signs, even though I've just
No
learned the
pylon
difference
sign
tonight?
proposed, which would be that single pole and like the Sunoco
None of
ones.
those?
There's not that. We're proposing like the building across the street, which is right on the ground, 5 feet high, 11 plus square feet.
Okay, yep, got it.
Yeah, but about that tall.
Yep, okay, thank you. And then I just also had a question with the pedestrians, but I'll save that for when we talk about that part.
Mr. Bastide, thank you. Mr. Costa?
Just one thing, if we could go back to the music studio, because I'm not sure, you don't have to put that back up.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure what the board, whether or not it is a music studio or not. And again, obviously, Tom is the planner, but I see Tom Barrett in the front row, probably ready to pounce if it is a use variance and it hasn't been properly noticed. But does the board make a decision whether or not it's a music studio or not? Is it permitted or not permitted?
That's a question. The applicant did notice for a use variance, I believe. and any other necessary.
The use variance for the music studio?
The use variance, it was I believe a D2 variance and a D1 variance that you noticed for?
I believe that's correct. I think what Mr. Costa's alluding to is, does the notice need to have a separate provision specifically calling out the bank as maybe a use variance? We disagree that it's a use variance. We don't think it's a use variance. Quite frankly, Mr. Behrens, answered the question himself. You don't have a definition of what a music studio is. How can it be a use variance if we don't know what the defined term or what the use is defined as? In its lay sense to a layperson, this is a music studio, music school. They're interchangeable terms. Music instruction is being provided and music is being played within the space. If someone has a different definition, it's not codified in your code. It doesn't exist anywhere, so I don't know how we can be at variance with it if it's not contained in the code in the first place. So we disagree that a use variance is even properly considered, but if it is, we'll have to take a look at it, but I don't see it.
And will your planner provide testimony regarding
Sure,
those issues?
we can have him cover those topics as well.
Thank you.
Anybody? Yes, Mr. Costa.
As we're banging the drums, is it going to be, again, you have residents right behind you. So how do you keep the noise,
Soundproof rooms.
soundproof rooms?
That's why we have so many rooms, because they're rated for different types of sound, different instruments.
All right, so if the door's open to the back, it shouldn't be an issue. People that are living right behind this?
They'll be able to close their room and be enclosed.
Okay. So shouldn't be any external noise based on what's happening internally? Okay, very good.
I have one more question on the external noise, that being that Mr. Costa brought it up. When the cars drive into Dunkin' Donuts, they pull up to a sign, there's a speaker there, and the people ask, "What would you like?" And then the people give the response. What is the test, I don't even know who would testify to this, but what kind of disturbance is that going to cause the neighborhood for the people that live behind, because that's all residential back there?
Gary, those apparatus, in terms of the speakers, they now have volume controls on them, do they not?
Well, they have sensors, so they take into consideration the ambient sound. So
I'm not talking about what's going in, I'm talking about what's coming out.
Yes. So when they're listening, so if you're on a highway, for example, and it's very loud, the speaker's going to be louder. So, but as it gets quieter and it's into the evening, the output volume is automatically controlled by the speaker. It's a smart system that has sensors, similar to your Alexa.
And what direction is that speaker going to be facing? Is it facing west?
It's facing the rear, the hillside that has.
So it's facing the houses behind it,
Well, it's really facing the terraced.
that has houses behind it.
Yes, but sound is linear, so it goes in a direction. Plus, there'll be a car blocking the sound.
I don't know if this would be a proper question to ask you, but would it bother you having that sound if you lived right above it in the house?
No.
It wouldn't, okay.
Like I said, there's an automatic control that won't make it louder than the surrounding noise that is there. You can't, with acoustics, if there's a sound going on, there's a jackhammer going on, and there's anything else going on that is a volume that is lower or equal to, it doesn't make more sound. It's not louder. It's the same, only when that volume gets higher. So the sensors take into account like the noise of the car idling, and the output will maintain a certain decibel. In addition to that, there's a volume control that the manager can control if to take the system down a notch, a notch, a notch. So generally, when we have issues like this or questions like this, we look in your ordinance, see what the allowable sound decibels are at the property line, similar to an air conditioning unit is screened for sound, and we adjust it down when they build it, when they install it.
Tom, I'd like you to look into that aspect a little bit for us and find out exactly what kind of burden that is going to weigh on the people that live behind there. From personal experience, I live across the street from the middle school, and all of a sudden they installed a speaker outside, and every morning, as the kids are going in, I'm waking up. It's a school, and I have no choice, but with Dunkin' Donuts, we do a little bit. So I do have a concern with that, especially with it facing,
But it is a very smart system. It's a 3M product. It works very well.
Are the drive-through hours the same hours as the business, 5 AM to 11 PM, or is there,
Yes.
so 5 o'clock in the morning, that thing will be going?
I have a concern with that.
Do we-
That's a significant concern for me, especially at 5 o'clock in the morning. Can I help you? You understand where I'm going with
I
this?
understand what you're saying, but I'm justifying that you're.
Okay.
You won't hear that product.
Perhaps you can, I don't know if you can get an expert on this thing and
Well, Mr.
to
Chairman,
explain it a
you
little
know,
more?
I don't know that I'm prepared to bring a expert in on that topic, but I am willing to suggest the following to you. If the board acts favorably on the application and it's constructed, and please bear with me, I'm not being cute, we are prepared, post-construction to demonstrate that the speakers comply with the state noise code, which is the regulating source. And at 5 AM, the nighttime limits of the state noise code would apply, and I believe it would be somewhere in the order of 50 or 60 decibels, which is less than what my voice is at right now. The human voice is closer to 60 decibels. But we're prepared to demonstrate compliance with the code on a post-construction basis. And that's what we'd be held to.
I think Mr. Costa would like to weigh in here.
Simple. Do you have an address of the closest one, the smart system?
No, I can provide that to you.
So, we'll go there. We'll order a cup of coffee. And we'll listen to the speaker.
And you'll report back the next meeting? Is that fair?
We'll bring people with good hearing and bad hearing. This way there's
Well,
a.
I have the bad hearing, so.
And to me, I never get my order right because I can't hear through the speaker.
I guess my other concern is now that issue has been brought up is what happens to the car that installed those muffler systems in the car, or a guy pulls up on a motorcycle and, again, I'm thinking 6 o'clock in the morning, the window is facing if it was facing the front, I would have a lot less problem with it than facing the rear. I know that it's probably not possible, but I'm really concerned about the people on Summit Avenue. Mr. Costa?
The order board and the car would then the muffler would be oriented back towards Kinderkamak Road. So the noise would be projected backwards.
When he pulls up to the window to order, you'd have the car, this is the building, he's ordering here, the car is here.
Right.
The sound is reflecting off the building and heading up the hill, would it not be?
Yeah, I'm not sure that the sound goes sideways.
I could show
From
you
these.
on the site plan. This is the C03 site plan. The order boards are right here, oriented like this. So they're actually going on a 45-degree angle into this retaining wall, really. And the pickup windows are on the south side, or the left-hand side. So they're coming
My biggest concern is the hours of operation and having that kind of noise coming through. If it was a normal bank operation when you had when you had the drive-through back then, during normal hours with Kinderkamak Road, it's already kind of noisy. But at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm sure Chief Walker can attest, the traffic is very light at 5 o'clock in the morning. So you're not going to have that background noise from Kinderkamak Road to drown out these cars or these whatever goes back there, where it's so close to the homes. I have a concern.
Yeah, I understand your concern. I would just suggest to you that those cars are traveling your roadways, and they're not coming from very far. They're not coming to the middle of River Edge from off the beaten path to get their coffee. There are a lot of Dunkin' Donuts along the way, so they're on your roads now.
But we are the drive-through one. And the other ones along the
Well,
way that really aren't.
they're all going
Emerson
drive.
is not.
They're all going drive-through, because the franchisor is pushing all of the franchisees to.
But we would be the only one in the immediate area as right now, is that correct?
I don't
All right, so we
know.
have South, we know there's not one there. Emerson, I know it, the town very well, we know there's not one there. I don't know, there's none in Paramus on Forest Avenue. So within at least a 3-mile radius, we're the only game in town. Is that correct?
It may be, but it doesn't matter. Humans, including myself, are lazy creatures. We are not driving a 1/10 of a mile out of our path for a cup of coffee. I'd like to think otherwise, and I'm sure Duncan would like to think otherwise. It don't happen. And it doesn't matter whether you're the drive-through, the walk-up, the self-serve, or the delivered to your car. You're just not coming off your path because there are too many other options where you can stay on your path and get your cup of coffee or your donut or your
So
Taylor ham and egg
we'll have to try to figure this out, because fundamentally, I have no problem with the Dunkin' Donuts moving, and it looks like it's a beautiful building, and I'm sure we can figure out the sign situation. But that noise situation with a drive-through scares me for those people. So that's
Let
just
us
my
take a-
personal opinion.
Yep, let us
I'm only
take a
one
look.
vote, but I guess we'll discuss it further as Mr. Costa and your plan to go out for a cup of coffee.
Yeah, we'll take a look at what is surrounding the perimeter of the parking lot and whether there's something there that can provide that extra layer of assurance that you're looking for.
Okay. Okay, so I would like to entertain a motion to open to the public.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstained? All right, so I'm going to do it a little differently this time because I know Mr. Barrett is going to be probably a little bit of time, so I'm going to start all the way in the back row. This is just on a testimony you've heard, nothing else. If you'd like to come up, ask some questions, or make a comment, we would ask you to state your name, your address, and you'd be free to make the comment. So I'll go to the last row.
Joanne Basil.
Come on up, please, Joanne. Good evening.
How are you? Good evening, everybody.
Microphone.
Joanne Basil, 78 Bloomfield,
And could you spell your last name, please, for the record?
Basile. My concern is the traffic.
All right, so we haven't heard from the traffic
I know,
expert yet.
I know.
So this is only on the testimony that was given. Do you have any questions about signage? Do you have any questions about lighting?
Noise, like you just said. I mean, I'm the second house in off of Kinderkamack. I hear everything, like it's in your bedroom. So that's a huge concern to me as well. That's it.
All right, so we'll have you back when traffic, and that would probably be the next meeting, correct?
Good, thank you, gentlemen.
Anybody else in the back row? The next to back row? Then, sir, with the glasses? Yes, no? Okay. Then we have the next to second row, okay?
Yes, that's me. Evening, everybody. Matthew Corwin, last name Corwin, 57 Bloomfield Avenue. Again, the street directly across Kinderkamack Road.
Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Generally endorse the concept of this project. Like it. I think it's good use of the property. I am very anxious. This is now my third meeting that I've attended, or watched. I'm extremely anxious about the traffic. I will save my eagerness to hear about traffic for another day when it's properly on the record. Couple comments on the monument sign. I'd ask the parties putting the project forward, to the extent that it does stay, is there a possibility that from a placement standpoint, it could be on the southernmost portion of the property? I assume it's going to be an illuminated monument sign, and to the extent that we could avoid signage illuminated directly from across the street from Bloomfield Avenue, which is the only residential street. If you go just to the southernmost portion of the property, opposite that is all commercial lots. just a request, if that's possible, to maybe have, when I sit on my front porch and I look up the street, as little interruption of what I have currently as possible would be ideal. Music school. Am I correctly understanding this, that it's?
Well, why don't you get an answer to your first question
Yes.
first? So his question was, can the monument sign be
To the extent
moved
it
further
stays.
south?
To the extent it stays, to Mr. Merman's point, to the extent that it does stay part of the project. Because I think I peeked up, I think where you pointed earlier was directly across from Bloomfield Avenue. If the goal is to get it so that the northern traffic on Kindercamack Road coming from the south to the north sees your Dunkin' Donuts, which, get it, makes sense, as early as possible, it would seem to me that the monument sign would be best placed
The left side of the entrance.
the southernmost portion of the property, to attract that attention,
Yeah, if,
to the extent this needs. Yeah.
right, if it's accepted by the board, we can move it to the southern portion of the
Because
property.
if my memory serves me correctly, I believe opposite of that is all commercial,
Yes,
and there's no residential entrances, and that would seem
yeah.
perfect. Appreciate that. The music school, am I correctly understanding it's a school for what I took lessons in when I was in elementary school, and junior high, clarinets, trumpets, string instruments, and the like?
Yes, we make
Okay.
an appointment with an instructor and meet.
Perfect. Perfect, we're not talking about people coming in at 10 o'clock at night to learn how to play electric guitar. Okay. Okay. The hours of operation for the drive-through in the premises, I'm curious what the existing Dunkin' Donuts, and again, I know I'm inching towards traffic, what the current Dunkin' Donuts hours of operation are.
I believe they're the same, although they're,
I think the one there,
They close much earlier than.
I believe they do close much earlier, so.
7 or 8, I think.
So again, I acknowledge that I'm inching towards traffic, so I'll tread lightly if the board will give me some leeway. But I'd like that to be considered as the traffic presentation comes into play to make sure we're comparing apples to apples.
it's 5:30 to 7:30, Monday through Friday, and 6 to 4 on Sunday,
And it'll be extended to 5:30 to 11,
5 to 11.
5 to 11, okay.
So just want to make sure when we do finally hear the presentation on the traffic study that we make sure we're comparing apples to apples there. I will say on the discussion, I found the discussion of the drive-through speaker fascinating, to be honest. I would say that I also think that we need to account, if I'm not mistaken from memory, walking that lot, I think from what I see from the plans, the actual order board is going to be a good 50 to 100 yards before you even get to the property line. So I think that aids in your.
In the rear.
In the rear. I
Correct.
think that aids in your benefit of the noise pollution, just
Correct.
for just pointing out for the purpose of the conversation. I think that's a bit further back. And then it's not right up, it doesn't abut the property line. And then the comment about existing paths, again, I know we're getting really spot on to traffic, which is, again, I've said this in the previous meeting that I participated in, my biggest concern, and I'll tread lightly again, you're gonna see a lot of traffic there. People come up Bloomfield Avenue as it is, zooming up there. It's a main artery to get to the train station, to and from. I'm concerned that we're gonna have existing traffic from New Milford, but more than that, Kindercamack Road is the main artery.
I'm just gonna
Yeah.
stop you. He can't answer those questions.
Nope, but
So unfortunately, I'm sure you'll be at the next meeting when
Yeah.
and that would be the guy that you would ask those questions.
Understood. I'm going to limit my questioning to what was represented in the record tonight. I'll try to limit it. I've been in a courtroom once or twice before. I'm going to try to limit it to
But
the
basically on signs, noise, and the architecture of the building.
100% understood. There were some comments that went beyond that, so I was going to address those. But I will specifically about deviation. Just want to point out that people aren't going to have to deviate to get to this drive-through. They're going to pass the Dunkin' Donuts in Emerson, drive by that because they don't have to get out of their car on their way to Hackensack to go to work. And rather than go to that one, they're going to come to this one because it's a drive-through. That's all I'll say about that. Very anxious to hear the traffic study. Extremely anxious to hear it, and
We look forward to seeing you at the next
I
meeting.
do endorse the project, though.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Good evening.
Deborah Powell, Powell. I'm at 69 Christie Avenue. I'm very concerned about this, this business. I don't really think it's suitable for this location. It's a residential area or bordering a residential area, and as Mr. Berman referenced, some of those houses that are now businesses were once houses. So, you know, for an upscale community like Bergen County, River Edge, you know, it's kind of not very upscale. You know, Dunkin' Donuts should try to conform to the community. I mean, build an establishment. And, you know, as everybody knows, up and down Kinderkmack Road, the new construction has been upgraded to a better look for the town. So I don't think we should, like, you know, use it to compare to an older establishment like the current Dunkin' Donuts that's, I suppose, grandfathered in. I'm concerned about the lighting. I'm on the east side of Kinderkmack Road, so, and the noise, you know, and the long hours, you know, all those things combined. And, you know, so you're going to have lighting on till 11:30 at night, you know, and River Edge really shuts down about 9 o'clock, you know. So I just think, you know, this is more appropriate, like for Route 4 maybe, or, you know, a 4-lane road in Bergen County than a 2-lane road. Yeah, the light pollution. And I did not hear the overall height during, well, first of all, from where I was sitting, you know, that podium interfered with that moving back those plants, so the public could actually, you know, see anything. But, so what the height is proposed with the sign?
Of the proposed building height?
Yes.
One page. We got 21 feet 10 inches.
Okay.
21 feet 10 inches.
Okay, great. I think that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions for me?
No? Thank you very much.
Don't forget your phone.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yours?
all.
Sorry. Sorry, Garrett.
Okay. We're going to move to the front. Going to take a stab in the dark. Does anybody in the front have any questions? Mr. Barrett, good evening. How are you?
Good, thank you. I do have a question that relates back to the first presentation, back in February.
Sure.
And
Was this prior testimony?
there was some testimony about the percentage of customers that would use the drive-through versus the walk-up or even into the store itself. Do you recall that?
No. I don't recall the numbers, the actual percentage. I don't want to
Okay. Well, because the minutes reflect that your testimony was that 60% of the customers would use the.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you discuss the increase in business that would result from the addition of the drive-through?
No. Well, I did.
And who could we ask that information of? Will there be a witness that could speak to that?
There won't be a witness to speak to that.
Okay. And then I just have a comment, Mr. Chairman, about some of the architect's testimony, and that's as to how the music studio will be run. Shouldn't the person who's running the music studio come and testify as to what they intend to do with the space? Everything the architect says is hearsay. It's what somebody told him. I think that, in all fairness, I mean, we see a number of rooms, which, logical explanation, different instruments, different rooms. But I think it's better to have the actual person who's gonna run the school, who has experience, they're running a school right now, to come and testify to this board.
Mr. Barron's, what's your thought on that?
I don't disagree. It may benefit the applicant to name the tenants, so that the board and public have a better idea of what uses are anticipated instead of guessing. And I would leave that to the applicant, or to the board, if the board wants to hear that testimony, certainly.
So I'm going to say it's your prerogative, obviously, if you want to introduce that testimony or not at the next meeting. You're welcome to. If you don't have to. Certainly, the board will make its decision accordingly on what's being testified to.
Understood.
Fair?
Understood.
Is that fair to you?
No objection, it's up to the board.
Anybody else in the front? Okay. Anybody else? Second chances. Okay. I'd like a motion to close to the public, please.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay. Your next witness, sir.
Yes, I'd like to recall Mr. William Vogt.
And my notes do not reflect that the engineer was,
We didn't get to him, you may be correct. I'm looking at my notes right now.
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
could you please state your name, spell your last name, and provide your business address for the record?
Sure, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. William R. Vogt Jr., it's V as in Victor, O, G like girl, T like Tom. My company is L2A Land Design LLC. We're located at 66 Grand Avenue in Englewood, New Jersey, 07631. We prepared the site plans and the application before you tonight.
Okay, could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And could you please provide your qualifications and background to the board, and if you've testified before this board before?
Sure. I have a bachelor's in science and civil engineering from SUNY Buffalo, New York. I'm a licensed professional engineer in both the states of New Jersey and New York. I'm one of the owners and principals of L2A Land Design. I have testified before this board. I think the last time was for the Regency Adult Daycare on Route 4.
Mr. Vogt, do you currently hold a license in the state of New Jersey to practice engineering?
I do.
And it remains in good standing as we're here this evening?
Yes, it does.
And when you've appeared before this board and other boards in the past, have you been accepted as an expert in the field of engineering?
I have.
Ever not been accepted?
No, I have not.
Let's not make tonight the first time. I'd submit Mr. Vogt as an expert in the field of engineering.
Anybody, any objections from the board?
I suggest the board accept his
You can
credentials.
continue.
Thank you.
Mr. Vogt, you've made yourself familiar with the property which is the subject of the application,
I have.
and you've made yourself familiar with the neighborhood in which the application sits.
I have.
Why did you amend the plans before you even testified? I'll save that for later, I'm sorry.
Sure, no problem.
You were present at the last meeting when there were discussions by the board and from the board's engineer concerning taking a look at the layout and having discussions with the county concerning access to and from the county road into this site, were you not?
I was.
And did you ultimately, after those meetings, participate in such conversations?
I did.
And you've consulted and taken the county's input into consideration in revising the plans that we're about to testify to this evening, correct?
I have.
And there were a number of documents and reports that I marked into evidence this evening. You heard those markings as you were in the audience?
I did.
And to the extent those reports or plans were attributed to L2A, they were prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes, they were.
And can we start with what I like to call the page turning of the plans?
Sure. Does that microphone work?
I do
Don't-
not
don't
think
you
so
think
unless
that, or-
you're personally charged.
I'm going to guess there might be a bad battery, but you could try. Push the button until it turns green.
Forgot.
It might not amplify, it's probably just getting for the YouTube or the recording, I would imagine.
Sure. So these are the site plans that were submitted as part of the application. This is exhibit 810. These are drawings C-01 through C-13. They all have a revision date of number 2 dated 4/8/22. The site is located at 915 Kenneth Road. It's found as Lot 4, Block 206 on your tax map 2, and is in a commercial C1 zone. Just to help the board and the public understand where the site is.
Bill, can we identify and mark that before you testify to it?
Sure.
A19. Is that an aerial plan pulled from which source?
This is a Google aerial map pulled from today. And what I have is north is to the right-hand side of the page as you're looking at it. I have outlined the site in red around the property line, Kindermack Road to the eastern side. You have Midland Avenue to the north. To the south is other commercial zones. And then to the west are residential properties. The existing site has frontage along Kindermack Road, that is the county Route 503. There are 3 driveways that provide ingress and egress to the property. The northernmost, which is to the right of the page, the northernmost driveway is an ingress-only driveway to the facility. The driveway in the center is a egress driveway only, and that's after the bank customers go through the drive-through. And then the southernmost driveway is a full movement driveway to the south. The existing property, as you can see, has the bank building. It also has asphalt parking pretty much to the rear and south of the site. Under proposed conditions,
And could you please submit a copy of that exhibit to our board clerk?
Sure.
Thank you.
under proposed conditions, I'm flipping back to exhibit A18. This is the site plan with color added to it. What we're going to do is we're basically going to subdivide the property and create 2 lots. One being lot 4.01, which will be the home of the new Dunkin' Donuts building. That's to the south, and the existing bank with the proposed music studio will be to the north. That's going to be proposed lot 4.02. We're going to keep that northernmost ingress driveway to the bank and music studio as an ingress only to the property. We're going to preserve the parking lot that's to the rear with some improvements. And then we're going to also preserve the egress driveway, which is that middle driveway, for the bank's drive-through. What we're changing on this proposal for the bank is to provide the 2 drive-through lanes and a 3rd bypass lane, which does not, which wouldn't currently exist under our first initial submission. So that's why we revised the plans. We provided a shift of that subdivision line to accommodate a bypass lane. That's going to be a 12-foot wide bypass lane for the bank and the music studio.
Bill, just to be clear, the 2 drive-through lanes exist today, and the bypass lane is what is being proposed or quote-unquote new under this proposal.
That is correct. Under the proposed conditions for the Dunkin' Donuts, we are, for the most part, preserving the southernmost driveway that currently exists today. We're going to reuse that driveway with some modifications that we've gone through with the county. The county is for the most part, satisfied with the revisions and basically the comments that we addressed of their concern. And we're gonna have a full movement driveway at that southernmost access point that's gonna bring customers into the site in a counterclockwise fashion to loop around the building. What we did in this scenario to accommodate that drive-through bypass lane for the bank is we switched the parking stalls for the Dunkin' Donuts to angled parking. That way we could get a larger backup aisle for those angled parking spaces while providing a drive-through lane within the facility. The drive-through lane goes and it actually splits into a double ordering position. This allows us to get additional queuing vehicles on the site. As they order and go through, they merge together and then they come around to the southern section of the building where they hit the pay window first, and then about 3 cars up, they pick up their order at the eastern portion of the building, where they're again directly facing the egress lane back out onto Kinderkamak Road. What we worked with the county was to create that separation at this driveway here. This driveway width is 30 feet wide. We're providing 2 12-foot lanes. So there's a 12-foot lane that comes in, and there's a 12-foot lane that comes out. And in the middle, there's going to be a 6-foot wide painted gourd striped island to separate the traffic coming in and the traffic coming out. And what that striping helps us do is to also push all of the customers, after they pick up their order, it pushes them into that 12-foot lane, which is farther away from the cars that are coming into the site. This is one of the initial comments from the county, that they wanted that separation. We spoke to the county about possibly putting an island in there. They did not want that. They preferred that there was more room there with the striping for cars to, in the event that they go beyond the 12-foot, that they have access to get in there, and 12-foot is the 6-foot in there, in between, provides that additional, I would say, factor of safety for cars coming in, cars coming out. What we also provided on this revised layout was we moved the bus stop, per the county's discussion, from its initial location, which there's a depressed curb that basically lines up with Bloomfield Avenue at the corner. There's no painted mid-block crossing at that location. This is, I don't want to say it's a random drop curb, but there's a drop curb in front of the bus stop. The county does not allow a drop curb in front of a bus stop. It does not work with the kneeling bus. It actually, when the bus kneels, you need to have a curb there so that the step is not too high to get passengers into the bus. So there being a drop curb there, that actually works against the kneeling bus. It's still too high of a step. So they want the bus stop away from that depressed curb, and they want it farther back, about 20 feet to the north of where its existing position is. So the bus stop will be moved approximately 20 feet to the north. They're gonna keep that depressed curb. They're not telling us to remove it. It's their call, but we're gonna leave that in there. They have not told us to provide a mid-block striping for that crossing there. They prefer us to leave it as it is. The second item that we developed here was access for pedestrians from the existing sidewalk into the site. With the bus stop being relocated a little bit to the north, we provided a T intersection for the sidewalk to come directly up to the site, which allowed us to have a crosswalk that's an ample distance from the intersection of cars coming into the site. So we're providing well over 25 feet from the intersection of the egress driveway to the painted crosswalk to access the Dunkin' Donuts. You heard testimony that there was the location of the walk-up window, that's to the south, or the southern front corner. We're gonna protect that area with bollards in that area. And again, that striped island in the middle, in our discussions with the county, that helps cars being pushed away from that location. So we are providing safety features up to protect the walk-up window. I think there were some comments in one of your board review letters about additional bollards to be installed. We can accommodate that, and we can work with your board professionals on that. We've also created an outdoor seating area that's associated with any walk-up customers for that window. So they have an outdoor area for seating as well as a bike rack. Our ADA stalls are closest to the building, which provides ADA access directly to access of the Dunkin' Donuts facility. Our trash enclosure is located to the rear of the site. It's screened with a wall around the enclosure. And again, we have, because of the grade change from the site to the rear of the property, we're going to install a retaining wall, which you can see is this dark black line, pretty much throughout the rear of the site and then down along the southern side property line. There's roughly or approximately a 30-foot grade change from the back of our parking lot to the residential properties to the west.
Bill, let's just amplify that if we can.
Sure.
That 30-foot differential, does that put the Dunkin' Donuts in the high position or the low position of the 30-foot differential?
It puts it in the low position.
So it will sit approximately 30 feet lower than the adjacent residential property line?
That's correct.
And there'll be a retaining wall that you pointed out as a dark line along the perimeter of the parking area servicing the Dunkin' Donuts?
Yes.
And focusing on the Dunkin' Donuts component where the proposed dividing line between the lots is drawn in, what is the average or high, low, whatever dimension's easier for you to provide of the wall from the point where that property line creates the Dunkin' Donuts lot to where it wraps around the drive-through?
Sure. I'm just going to switch back to the grading plan so I can hit those dimensions for you. Okay, at the proposed subdivision line, you're going to start at a 2.5 foot high retaining wall, with our site being the low side, the high side being behind us to the rear. And as you move towards that trash enclosure, you're going to come up to 3 feet, 4.5 feet, 6 feet. You're at 8 foot. You're almost at 9 feet at the trash enclosure. And then as you come around the trash enclosure, you're still at 9 feet. And then you'll start dropping down along that southerly property line, 7, 6.5, 5, 4, and then you'll move grade out at the very front. It comes out to about 2.5 foot retaining wall on the side. So
Okay.
the finished floor of the proposed building is 81.5, so the actual building is another about 2.5 feet lower than the grade at the rear of the parking lot. So the rear of the parking lot, you're at elevation 84, the building's gonna sit at 81.5.
And what's the elevation of the property line? If at the wall or the edge of the parking lot, it's 84, what would it be at the edge of the property line?
You're about 113 back here, and you're climbing. And the reason that the site is lower, that is another change that we made that was driven by the county's comments. Originally, we had the building a little bit higher. The building naturally wants to sit a little bit higher to keep those retaining walls down in height. We were trying to accommodate a lower retaining wall in the back. However, the county has specific requirements for the driveways to come in. It needs to be at a certain percentage for a certain distance. So the site as it is today is very accommodating to the county's design standards. What is not accommodating to is the height of that retaining wall in the back. So we had to give up the lower retaining wall height, but we have a compliant, acceptable driveway per the Bergen County standards. That was the grading.
I don't want to get into an east-west discussion, but when you say give up the lower retaining wall, it meant that we increased the size of the retaining walls as it depicted on this plan.
We did. We
Okay.
increased them, as I said, we're up in the neighborhood of 9 feet, where before we were probably in the neighborhood of 6.
And what is that wall constructed of, Bill?
That wall could be, it could be segmental block with the geogrid. It could be a board in place wall. There's some options in the back. I have room. I kept the retaining wall far enough off the side property line where it is a little bit lower that I could still get a segmental block wall in there. But we have options.
So what we're envisioning is some sort of masonry product, whether it's poured cement or block, but it's a masonry wall.
Absolutely.
Understood.
I guess just while I'm on the site plans, we're going to provide all new lighting throughout the site. It's all LED fixtures. It's a mixture of wall-mounted fixtures, parking lot, pole-mounted fixtures. We kept it in strict compliance with the other ordinance. I think I had a typo on the plan with the height of the pole-mounted fixtures. I think somewhere on the plan it says 15, it's actually 20 feet, and that's what's permitted. So we're gonna keep it at 20 feet. So I'll fix that on the next go around. And you can see we meet the requirements your borough code throughout. The schedule is listed on the plan here.
So the lighting as proposed, I assume, would be an enhancement over what exists today?
That is correct.
And it will provide safe and sufficient lighting for both pedestrians and motorists who may visit the site?
Yes, it will.
And the lighting, will it be timer controlled as well?
Yes, it's all LED fixtures, so they have lighting controls. They can be, the illumination levels can be lessened. They have photo cells on them, so they can go on and off at certain times. They can be on different circuits, so there's not as many lights on. Still providing ample lighting for security when we're in the off hours, when the facilities are not in operation. Again, the drive-through ATM has specific lighting requirements for the ATM. It has to be a certain illumination level within a certain distance of those ATMs, so that's something I cannot control. But again, that's only specific for the ATM and for the bank. Okay, so
Bill, when you make reference to the ATM standards, those are set by federal law, actually, not an engineering standard or a bill standard or a bank, X standard.
That's correct.
Where is what's the ATM, the face of the ATM, what is it facing, north, south, east, west?
Sure, you have, you have the existing, you have the walk-up that faces the east, and then you also have the ATM.
So the walk-up is facing Kennecott Road?
That's correct.
Okay.
And then you have the drive-through, which is facing south towards the dock.
And I don't want to interrupt you too much, but the lighting on the ATM, is that going to affect the people that live across the street that go down
No,
Bloomfield Avenue or Christie?
No, well, it's specific to proximity to the ATM. It has to be at,
I understand what the rules are. I'm just wondering if it's going to affect the people that live across the street or not.
it won't. In the long and short answer, it won't. That increased lighting for the ATM will have no impact on the ambient light throughout the remainder of the facility.
I
Bill,
apologize for
it doesn't
interrupting.
change the light level at the property line, is what.
It doesn't change it. It's been incorporated.
Was there an existing walk-up ATM there prior, or no?
I believe there was.
There was one,
There's
yeah.
there's a boarded up hole in the front there, I saw this morning.
I apologize. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, and then we're going to provide some new landscaping throughout the facility. And I know one of the comments, I think it was in the planner's letter, was maybe we could sharpen our pencil a little bit and provide maybe some better landscaping and a better design out of the facility. So we do that. I worked with our landscape architect today, and I do have an exhibit to present. There's that for you.
Bill, can you just identify it for the record, and we're gonna mark it as A20? Not the handout.
Okay. Oh, the handout.
Oh, I'm sorry, hold on a second, maybe it was submitted. I'm being corrected. Yes, it's A16. A16. Chief, would you like one? No. Thank you.
Mr. Cosper, is this property subject to our streetscape ordinance with lighting and?
Yes.
It is, okay. So you understand it'll be subject to conforming to our streetscape if you're approved, Counselor?
If it's required, we will do it.
This layout, is this revised from CO6?
It is.
Okay,
It's from today.
Okay.
The date, this is Exhibit A16 with the date of 5/25/22.
okay.
So, we took into consideration the planner's comments. We thought they were very good comments, and we reworked the landscaping throughout the property. So we did provide a landscape and tree list. That's page 2 of it, and then this red line markup would be something that we would draft up and submit to the board and their professionals for review. So I think we accommodated a lot of the elements that were in the planning letter. We tried to keep that continuity throughout the streetscape on Kennecott, and then also develop some low-level plantings and enhancements of plantings, not only along Kennecott, but into the site, and to also buffer that subdivision line between the two properties. Again, we had to take into consideration, it is a county right-of-way. I can't put a dense amount of screening in the front of the property. I have site triangles out there that I have to abide by, but I think you'll be pleased with this revised landscaping scheme once it's formally drafted and submitted as part of the application. In addition, we're going to put in 2 underground stormwater management systems, one for each property. They will retain stormwater, control the runoff below the levels that are currently running off the property. So we're controlling the stormwater runoff. We're actually going to treat it with mechanical treatment devices. None of these elements are on the existing property, so there'll be less stormwater coming off the site, and the stormwater that does come off the site will be cleaner water. And these are devices that are approved by the state. All the existing utilities, we're going to try to reuse as many as we can for the existing bank and retail.
Lights off. Go ahead, you can continue. Go ahead.
Try to reuse all the existing utilities to the best of the extent possible for the bank and music school. We'll have to pull in new service connections to the Dunkin' Donuts, but everything is available within Kinderkamack Road. We do have to get more survey information and pick up more of the utilities within the right-of-way of Kinderkamack. We just have to get police detail. We'll work both with the county and the municipal police to shut that down. We didn't want to go out there and get that information and it not be a safe condition. So we will update the survey. We'll provide all of the additional survey utility information that was requested both by the county and by your board engineer. Other than that, on any of the comment letters, I didn't see anything in Mr. Costa's letter that I could not address and work with Mr. Costa's office to address. I think one of the comments in particular would be where the ADA parking stalls are currently located for the bank and music school. Currently, the way the operation for this building works is there's access through sidewalks along the front of the building. The ADA parking stalls are on the northernmost portion of the site. So customers do walk in that driveway to get to that sidewalk. I think I have opportunity to create a sidewalk in this green space to the north and to put a striped crosswalk to get the ADA stalls to the front. There was some discussions about possibly having side or rear access doors to both tenants. I can also look at possibly separating one of the ADA spaces to the rear to accommodate that as well. So I think all the ADA, I can work with Mr. Costa's office and we can get that to comply.
You need to go over the parking counts for each of the uses and each of the proposed properties, please.
Sure. Okay. For the bank and music, the banks require one space for every 250 square foot of floor area or 8 per teller window. When you run the calculations, we have one teller window that would be 8 spaces. However, our square footage at the 250 puts us at 9 required parking spaces for the bank. For the retail store, it's 1 space per 150 of floor area, up to 2,000 square feet, plus 1 space per 175 square foot thereafter. So when you run the calculation for that, you get 15 total spaces. So you have 9 for the bank, 15 for the music studio. 24 spaces are required for the dual use on the property. We're providing 29 parking spaces on the subject lot. So we have an excess of 5 on the bank and music store property. On the Dunkin' Donuts, I'll switch. For the Dunkin' Donuts, that falls under restaurants, cafeteria-style fast food, 1 space per 2 seats, plus 1 space per 2 employees. So based on the amount of seating and employees, we require to have, we have 18 seats and we have 4 employees, so that requires 11 spaces. However, you have a minimum for this type of uses of 40 spaces. So although the breakdown of the building, per se, is only requiring 11 spaces, you have a more strict requirement for this type of use where it has a minimum of 40 spaces. However, we are proposing the drive-through. So in addition to those 15 on-site parking spaces that we have, we are showing a queuing operation for another 13 cars on the facility. So, and the traffic engineer will go into more testimony about this, but I just wanted to tell the board about this requirement for the parking. Yes, it's a variance, but there will be further testimony on the relief, and it does relate back to, we have 11 spaces that are compliant with the amount of seating inside the building and the amount of employees, plus we have the drive-through queuing operation that provides for another 13 parking stall, or queuing stalls on the facility.
Bill, I'm a little mathematically challenged besides for directionally challenged. Can you do the math for me? At 40 spaces, what does that translate into on a space per square footage basis
Oh,
for the Dunkin'?
For the Dunkin'? Sure, the Dunkin', it's 23, the building is 2,300 square foot approximately. I'm just gonna get a calculator.
I don't even attempt it, so I give you credit.
All right, let me do the same thing. Andy, I'm trying to get there for you. It's really, it doesn't quite break down into that, but. Andy, I'm not sure I can break it down for
You have 2,312 square feet of building and 40 parking spaces, so on a number of spaces per thousand, what does that translate to?
You want to do that for 1,000?
Yep,
That sounds like you got the answer for me.
don't trust me.
I think you lied to me, Counselor. I think that 10:30 curfew is going to be right on spot.
It may very well be. Sorry about that. High hopes.
It's about, .17.
That does,
It's 17, it's about 17 spaces per thousand.
right. That's what the minimum would translate to for this use category in the code, regardless of the size of the building.
Correct.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you a curveball.
Yeah.
All right. There was some concern, Bill, about pedestrians who may be visiting the site from the south and how they might get to either the takeout window or the front door. Do you share those concerns in terms of the pedestrian movements, or do you believe they're accommodated in the design that's being proposed?
We did discuss this with the county. That is something that came up in our multiple discussions with them, and that's why we did place the sidewalk at the location directly for access to the site from the county right-of-way. Our discussion, if you're at the bus stop, you're basically, you're gonna walk down the sidewalk and you're gonna cross and you're gonna enter the site at that safe location. Again, with our screening and enhanced landscaping, it's really gonna prohibit you from cutting through this green space other than through the sidewalk. Pedestrian traffic that does walk up, if you're walking in the northerly direction, yes, you will have to cross that driveway and then get to that access point to come in. We looked at the possibility of possibly putting a sidewalk along that southerly driveway. What that's doing, though, that's inviting customers to come into the site, which is also a steeper portion of the site, grade-wise, and then have to cross in front of the pickup window. So throughout our discussion, we really wanted to limit the access to the site to this one location, which provided a safe distance from the ingress movements off Kinderkamak, so that a car can visually see the pedestrians. They can see them along the Kinderkamak right-of-way, walking on the sidewalk. They can see them on the sidewalk, the new sidewalk that's going to come into the facility. And they can see them in both the north and south directions when they're driving. So they can see people walking as they're driving down, and as they come into the facility, they can still see that access sidewalk, and it's at the front of the driver. So I know there was discussion before, is there the possibility of somebody coming across here and taking the short route and cutting across? Yes. I mean, it is nature of habit for people to do that. I could, I think with the screening that we're providing, and again, I can't put anything too substantial within the right-of-way because of those site triangles, but we're gonna try to deter any access in any of that green space to prevent customers from getting off of that beaten path of the sidewalk and cutting through the site. I could talk to the county a little bit more and to see if they'll allow me to put some wayfinding signs within the county's right-of-way that directs the walking customers to this access point. I think they would be amenable to that. I don't know what shape or form it's going to be in, but I think they would allow some type of signage for pedestrian safety, especially because they had a lot of input on where this sidewalk was going to go. in relation to the county improvements.
Bill, in terms of deliveries to the site, turning movements within the site, can they be safely accommodated?
Yes, that's another element we went through with the county. The county had us do a scenario showing a customer vehicle, so a standard car or SUV. We modeled a 19-foot-long vehicle. It had to make that turning movement from Kinderkamak into the site to make that 90-degree or 180-degree turn into the site, starting at only 2 feet off of the Kinderkamak curb line. Okay, so I didn't have the liberty in the eyes of the county to put the car in the middle or closer to the center line. They wanted me to show that movement with the car's wheels at a maximum of 2 feet off of that curb line of Kinderkamak. So a passenger car can safely move in and make that 180-degree turn through into the driveway. It does not impede on that 6-foot striped island in the middle, and it is able to come into the site and then safely maneuver throughout the site. We also ran movements for the delivery vehicles. We typically get delivery vehicles on a daily basis. It's usually in an Econoline van size. Those vehicles come during off hours. They would park in any of the existing parking spaces that are provided for the facility. And the site does get a larger vehicle, single unit truck or Sprinter van, which is at that 24-foot length. And we do truck turning movements to show that vehicle coming and moving throughout the site. Now, the larger 24-foot does encroach on that 6-foot board space, but again, that's what that is for. And those are not, those deliveries, like I said, they're off hours, non-peak hours. They're not your typical customer traffic that comes into the site. The county finds our truck turning templates acceptable for both the customers and the deliveries. And we took all that into consideration.
Bill, garbage pickup from the site can be accommodated as well?
Correct. It's private waste hauler. The trash enclosure is to the rear or west of the property. The private waste hauler has the ability to bring in any size vehicle that can accommodate the site. So I know I can get a 24-foot single unit vehicle in there. They would access the site with something of that size, or could be smaller than that as well. They have, that's the beauty of having a private waste hauler.
And how about the bank/music school component of
Sure.
the site?
The bank doesn't really produce that much trash. It's mostly sensitive information, so a lot of it is kept in-house. It's shredded and then it's picked up by a private waste hauler. But any office trash, yes, it would go into the dumpster that's in the back, and also the music school would also use the dumpster that we would propose in the back. That's the north rear corner. Again, that's a straight shot coming in from that northerly driveway to pick it up, and then again, those vehicles would access back out and around and back out into Kinderkamak. The bank and music school property is really not a lot of change from existing conditions.
You've had an opportunity to review the letters issued by Mr. Costa, Mr. Behrens, and Mr. Klein.
I have.
Are there anything in those letters that you disagree with or can't accommodate in the next edition of the drawings?
No, there is not.
and you will in fact make those necessary changes.
I will, to the best of my ability.
Thank you. I have no further questions of Bill at this point. I make them available to the board and its professionals for your questions.
Mr. Costa, we'll start with you.
You don't want to start with the board?
I'd like to start with you. Please.
I guess we go back to the question, I guess, with the pedestrians and the vehicles. Is the driveway location, is that approved now by the county, or it's still in process?
It's pretty much approved. I have a couple of cleanup items. They actually want, they're satisfied with the layout of the driveway, the grading. They actually want the depressed curb to be wider. It's set at 30 feet right now. They want it at 34 foot. But that's just the depressed curb. The driveway itself is gonna stay at 30.
So they're happy with,
They're
make a right-hand turn, basically make a U-turn, and then circumnavigate through the property.
That's correct. We had showed them, and I believe your office, a possible alternative with a second driveway where it was an ingress only with an egress. The county did not like that. They shot it down right away. So we peeled back from that. They
Why
want
did they,
this
just out of
driveway.
curiosity, why did they, I wasn't at the meeting, so why did they,
The frontage of the property, creating two driveways because it has smaller frontage than the bank and retail portion. It would be another driveway that's close to the exiting driveway of the bank. Its proximity to the relocated bus stop, and the sidewalk that we're presenting. So they basically did not want to entertain it at all.
okay. As far as the other items, again, drainage, sanitary sewer, lighting, these can be dimmed, obviously they're LEDs, so they can be dimmable, you should put that, if it is approved in the ordinance, we can review that and have that option available. The landscaping, we just obviously got handed tonight, so you're gonna make a formal presentation or whatever, a formal submission with that.
Absolutely.
Basically, that's it. It's really, it comes down to the county has jurisdiction on the driveway. The board has jurisdiction with internal circulation. And I think the board, whether it's yourself, to discuss whether or not this works with the pedestrians walking up to the window. Bollards are great, but I think you probably need fencing or something in the front there to stop people from either falling off the curb where the entry driveway is for the pickup window. But again, I don't think you're gonna stop people from cutting across that driveway to get to that window. People are not gonna go north to cross, to turn around to come south. Perfect example, Continental Avenue. People did not walk to the intersection of Elm and Continental only to walk back the opposite way. So I think people are gonna go up the driveway. I think that's probably a guarantee. Whether or not you wanna put another sidewalk to the south, I know you mentioned, Bill, you did wanna do that and have another crosswalk come across the driveway.
I thought about it. I did talk about that with the county. They weren't too keen on again, inviting customers to cross in front of that drive-through.
Here's the good news, they have no jurisdiction.
Duly noted.
This board does.
I would say, let me have the opportunity to provide maybe some deterrence from people cutting across that lawn. I don't know how much I can do about preventing them from walking up the driveway. I mean, it's not common sense to do that, but I certainly can control the green space areas. I do like your suggestion about the fencing. I can certainly add that in addition to the bollards to protect that walk-up window. It's a very good suggestion. And I can add more bollards to that area.
And just being on a practical matter with the current, excuse me, Dunkin' Donuts, you know you're gonna have the kids there, you know that you're gonna have the bicycles, you just definitely need space to accommodate that.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that with this revised circulation plan and the angled parking, we provided that amenity, outdoor amenity space out there. But I think I can work a little bit more with you, and then, maybe we can extend that fence across the whole way, or that railing across the whole way, so even if you do think it's a smart idea to walk up the driveway, you essentially have to walk all the way down anyway to get it, to walk north to get into the
They'll
site.
just walk down the driveway, they'll continue down the driveway. That's probably what's gonna happen if you come in from the south. Just saying, that's more than likely that will take place. And again, other than that, obviously you have to provide details for the, whatever the retaining walls you're gonna build. You said 9 foot, obviously calculations. Dumpster, one of my big things is whether or not the dumpster closes, because every mall that we seem to have in town, the dumpsters never seem to be closed. They always seem to be open at the gates. So look at that very closely to make sure that that takes place.
Which brings
If you're gonna have tables in the front, obviously you're gonna need garbage collection up there because stuff will be all over the place. Yep. I think that's pretty much it, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Barron's?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I recognize that you generally agreed to comply with, the comments in my memo. I just wanted to cover a few things, a few technical things. So, the first one of note is we have parallel parking spaces at the rear of the Dunkin' Donuts site with, that are 18 foot in length, which, I'm not an engineer, but as far as I'm aware, that seems to be a bit undersized, recognizing that there's striping between the spaces. Can you confirm the functionality of those 4 spaces or so?
Sure.
It's just too small.
What we were trying to do was to basically keep those 4 parallel parking spaces in the back. Typically, they're 22 feet in length. Okay, so what they do for some parallel parking scenarios is they keep the actual space at the 18-foot length dimension, but they provide that 4 foot of striping in between, so that gives the opportunity for the person that's parallel parking in there to have the benefit of a 22-foot long space. So when the neighboring car parks in, they're within the 18-foot section. The next car that comes in has its 18-foot section plus the 4 foot, so it gives you the 22-foot to back. I did like your suggestion of putting signage for those 4 parking spaces as employee spaces. I think as a customer, I personally would probably not park in the parallel parking spaces. I would look for a space that's more on the angled space to go into the facility. So I think that's a good suggestion to utilize those parallel parking spaces for employees only.
All right. Yeah, I still have questions about that. Again, regardless, I think you still may need some form of relief technically. I don't know if you've requested that. I think the borough has a standard for a parallel parking space.
We did, I did notice it as a variance.
Right, okay,
below the table.
just confirming that. Bear with me here. This is more of an observation, and I alluded to it, I think, at the prior meeting, is that you have the double lane of ordering. And I know, the intent is obviously to provide additional queuing, which is a benefit to the applicant. It seems unusual for this suburban setting. I've never seen a Dunkin' Donuts with 2 order windows, and to the extent that it might increase noise or other nuisances, it's just a question that remains in my head. If it results in better site circulation or, better traffic flow, you guys can make that case. Again, I'm just pointing it out as being unusual in light of the use variance request. Again, having 2 lanes versus a single drive-through lane. You did address a number of my comments, so I'll try to just run through these. The retaining wall of 9 feet in height, I think technically requires variance relief. Right, so you may have identified that. Can you address, recognizing that the Dunkin' Donuts site is about 30 feet lower than the residential properties above, is there any opportunity for the vehicles that are queuing to shed glare up to those houses? Is that a possibility?
No, we'll have, again, you'll have that retaining wall at the back, which will act as a screening. So that, again, you're 2.5 feet at the shared property line, and then you're getting up to 9 feet as you go around the rear of the facility. And then you have this steep incline to the properties above. So any glare headlights would be shielded by a combination of the proposed retaining wall and the existing elevation change in the back. Not to mention it's fairly wooded back there. But even when it's wintertime and the like, the lights at the elevation of the cars will be sufficiently screened by the retaining wall on the changing grade.
I'm not 100% convinced. I know at the southwest corner of the site, I think there's a patch of bamboo, let's say. I just want to ensure that the buffering in that area is adequate, that there's zero glare emitted to the residential properties, not a little bit, dead of winter, no leaves, there's not one speck of light that impacts. That would be my comment. I don't know if you could provide site photos to indicate that the adequacy of that or not.
Sure, and again, I can even add, with the landscaping revisions, maybe there's an opportunity to put some evergreen shrubs along the top of that retaining wall to further buffer that, if it ever becomes a concern. That stanchion of bamboo that's coming out, that's invasive, it's won't be there at the end of this project.
Okay. So, that was one of the comments. So there will be a noticeable gap without that bamboo for those residents. Just whatever gets put there has to be sufficient, and I would offer day one, providing an instant impact in terms of screening. So,
Absolutely, I agree.
whatever you guys want to provide. With respect to the lighting, I know the ordinance allows for 20-foot light poles. I think, again, not being a lighting expert or engineer, I think that's maybe a bit antiquated for this setting. I would prefer to see lower lighting fixtures, given the surrounding residential properties. I don't know if 15 or 16 feet, whatever would be appropriate. Again, just to avoid glare from homes, down the hill. Just, that seems to be more appropriate for a highway setting in this thing.
I can rerun the analysis at a 15 or 16-foot height, and I'll try not to increase the intensity of the fixture.
And to that point, the color temperature should be capped at a reasonable level. We usually use a standard of like 3,500 Kelvin,
That's fine.
somewhere thereabouts. It was mentioned you have to comply with the streetscape requirements, just to note that as a condition of approval, or should it get to that point. Will the bus stop have a shelter once relocated?
It'll have the same shelter, it's just being relocated.
Okay.
So it's to 20 feet, approximately 20 feet inland, so yes.
Okay. Almost done, I promise. Just want to be done here. With the northerly site, do you have to provide electric vehicle charging stations per law?
We do, for parking lots of 50 and under, it's one. So, yes, we will locate at least one, and I do have a note on the plans, it's at the very bottom below the parking, below the signage table, and it does state that requirement.
Okay, so
So yes, we will locate at least one on the bank facility.
Okay. I think my final one for now would be similar to where you provided pedestrian access to the Dunkin' Donuts. It's a question whether or not there should be similar pedestrian access for the bank and the music school. It's a question. I could envision people walking there from either site, or kids to music school, etc. It's a question.
I think I have opportunity to do that as well.
All right, thank you. And again, we'll need an opportunity to review the landscape plan. I appreciate the effort, certainly more plants than there were, so we'll take a look at that. And, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Behrens. Ms. Boland?
I have some concerns with circulation. In the event the drive-through backs up and you're coming off at Kinderkamack, you can't even, you would not be able to get through to the parking. So you wouldn't even have a chance to, you'd be stuck there.
I think that's a question better for our traffic expert that's gonna be here at the next hearing.
Okay. Did you consider, I mean, I'm sure you considered it, moving the whole building, keeping the entrance where, the access from Kinderkamack where it is, but moving the building in order to, have the drive-through along the property line and then allow parking when you pull in, that you can at least get the parking if the drive-through is backed up?
It's gonna be back.
Was that looked at?
Yes, and really not feasible for this location. We wanted to keep the building away from the rear of the property. That's where the residential zone is in the back. Again,
No, I'm not saying to the rear, northerly.
this way.
Right, towards the bank building, and then have the drive-through to hug the side property line.
I'm sorry, that's essentially what you're saying, move the building to the right?
Right, not to the rear, you said to the rear.
Okay,
Oh.
I'm sorry about that. So you want to move the building to the right?
Right,
And, I'm sorry, what would that create?
then you would have the drive-through go along the side property line. In the event it's backed up, you would have the parking where the building is, and somebody could drive into the parking space and not be stuck there if the drive-through is backed up. I have an alternate. If the drive-through's backed up, I'll pull into the parking. So in other words, switch the parking with the building.
You're saying split the
Right,
site?
basically, right.
Yeah, that, again, with the access point, with the county, I do need separation.
No, I'm saying leave the access point. That just gives more room for queuing, going towards the drive-through. And then if it's backed up, they can pull into a parking lot.
To have parking spaces, you're saying?
Right.
On the southerly parking space
Right.
side? No, I mean, we went through a lot of scenarios
Okay.
on that.
I'm sure you did.
We tried to get, that's why we actually did try to get a parallel space on the side, which we did accomplish with one space over here. We did look at that with the county. Now that I understand what you're asking, I apologize for that. This really was the optimal location for it. I understand trust me, I've
Okay.
drawn this probably about 5 or 6 times.
So anyone parking has to cross, during busy times, has to cross the queuing lanes.
Sure. Within the county right of way? Yes, as we do today.
No, I'm saying, once you park, you have to cross all these cars to get into the building.
Yes, you would cross from the parking lot to get to the building.
Okay.
Yes, you would.
Okay. You had talked about the depressed curb in the front of along Kinderkamack that is to remain, which I'm assuming is from the old lot, the depressed curb, the access there?
The depressed curb, so that came up with our county discussion.
Right.
That depressed curb lines up with Bloomfield Avenue, with the intersection there. There's just no painted crosswalk across Kinderkamack. There never was. That's the county's jurisdiction. They want that depressed curb to remain. They just do not like it for the bus stop. That's why the bus stop is being removed and relocated, and that depressed curb is going to remain.
There's no concern that somebody will think it's an access to the property, or like a depressed curb?
It just lines, again, it only lines up with the Bloomfield Avenue intersection across the street. And again, there is no current sidewalk that's adjacent to
Okay.
that depressed curb, nor will there be one under proposed conditions.
Okay. As far as the lighting, mostly I'm concerned with the canopy for the bank drive-through, the new lighting. I know there's standards. Can you verify that you will not go above the standards? I know there's a minimum standard, but it gets very bright with the LED lights under these canopies. And just want to make sure you don't go higher than the safety standards.
Like I said, we'll abide by the lighting ordinance set forth by River Edge and the federal standards for the ATM. I will try not to design anything in excess of that.
Okay. Will you be installing them at dimmable lights in case they're too high and higher than the safety?
All LED fixtures have that capability.
Okay, and will that be for both properties as well, for all the lighting?
All of the lighting is brand new. It all has photocells. It all has the capability of being dimmed.
So if the borough decides something's too bright, you can change it down the road?
No problem.
Okay. That's all I have for now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gibbons?
I have, just want to confirm, so you either spoke to or proposed to the county of having an ingress and an egress driveway on this property? And they flat out are not in agreement? Okay. Because they're
Just
looking,
For the board's edification, that conversation also took place with your traffic consultant, Lee Klein, participating in the call. So when you hear from Mr. Klein, you'll be able to verify what we're representing to you on that call.
okay. Because the reason I ask is that we could solve a lot of our problem with the people walking through the driveway by moving the driveway, 20, 30 feet down, and then it would make it much easier to get to that walk-up window, and could create an easier ingress and egress. I think there's going to be a little bit of a problem with 12-foot driveways in and out right next to each other, making a very sharp right turn. And I understand you did simulations and all, but you still have people doing 35 down in Kinnecamack, making that turn. I think having two driveways would make the walk-up much safer, and could even make part of Ms. Boland's issue of not having to, if you can't get in the drive-through, you can park. So having that entrance basically to the right of the queue that you have there, personally, I think would solve a lot of the problems that we have with the site. And I don't, if that conversation is done and there's no possible way of fixing that, but I think that could alleviate a lot of the problems that we have. Just to continue on the circulation, even in your drawing, you have the handicap spot blocked by a car. So we're saying that we can fit 13 cars in there, and we're not allowing that person to either pull into or get out of that handicap spot. I realize it needs to be in a certain location, but is there some other way of putting that spot where it can actually be used if the line is long?
That did come up in our discussion. If you look at other, and we did look at other locations. There is another location that has a two driveway scenario that we tried to model this after in our discussion and sketch with the county. That particular two driver one has a similar situation where the drive-through queue lane does cross in front of not only the ADA spaces, it does cross in front of the additional angled spaces that are standard stalls that face up to that building. So really, in either scenario, having the handicap stall closest to the building And again, we'll have some more traffic testimony, some more traffic in here. Yes, there's gonna have to be some courtesy element for the person who is using that ADA spot for either parking or backing out. We feel like we provided a clear sight distance for the drivers coming in to see that location. And we have a large 18-foot wide backup aisle for the proposed angle spaces. We did, under our first submission, if you remember, we did have a painted crosswalk from the 90-degree stalls that were up against the side property line. We did have that walkway there. But the, moving the ADA spot over to the angle spaces on this side, again, I would be putting those standard spaces that will be more readily used up against the building. So I would get 2 more standard spaces at the building, and then moving the ADA space farther away from the access. So it really, it's in the best possible location. And then to your point of moving the building farther to the north, I don't have enough room to provide a mirrored image of this parking on the southern side. To have parking on both sides of the facility. So it's really one or the other.
Okay, I just see that handicap spot as almost useless if it's busy. If you really do have 12 or 13 cars, I think that becomes very difficult, and to be able to use it, to be able to get out of it, and not to get hit by someone coming around that bend. I understand we want to have it close to the building, obviously for access, but I just think that's going to be, that could be a potential issue for someone trying to use that spot. I also have, talking about the parallel spots, personally, I think they're mostly, at least a couple of them are somewhat unusable. The one to the left of number 4, at least on my drawing, the one next to the trash and recycling, I find that spot going to be very difficult for anyone to pull into. You're going to be pulling up right next to a dumpster with, I assume that's a curb or a sidewalk of some sort in between, and trying to pull in there. Those spots in the back, I don't see anyone actually using them. So if we're calculating those as your allowable spots of what you need to have to be compliant, those are very difficult to use, and for people to actually pull into those spots, especially that one right next to the dumpster.
I can certainly drop down to 3 parallel parking spaces and make them compliant. I've just tried to maximize the amount of on-site parking spaces. I lost 1 space from our original submission to this. I had 16, it went down to 15. We found an opportunity to get a parallel space on that southerly property line. Believe me, I can certainly drop this down to 3 parking stalls in the back and have it fully compliant. I just wanted the opportunity to get as many on-site parking spaces as possible. This type of 4-foot shared spacing is used. It's in the RSIS manual. I know that's a residential site improvement standard, but I would be implementing that onto this facility for those reasons.
And then just 2 other questions. On the bank, so we have the drive-through, you're coming through the drive-through, and then we have I'm not sure what you called it, but the bypass lane to the south of that. I'm just a little concerned, I guess, of being able to use that bypass lane. I'm not sure where, one of those is going to be an ATM. One of those drive-through lanes is going to be an ATM.
Oh, sure. The innermost is the teller drive-up window.
Okay.
Then the existing outer drive-up, that would be an ATM.
Okay.
Then we're creating the 12-foot wide bypass.
Okay. And then currently, there is a covering over that, and then there is concrete between the 2 lanes, between the ATM lane and the bypass lane.
Yes.
Right. So
you have a concrete island that separates the two drive-up lanes.
Right.
And then the canopy is this dashed line that extends out around. That will all remain, and its supports and foundations.
Right.
We're basically just pushing that asphalt.
That's what I'm saying.
away. I mean, it really is all there right now, I'm just reconfiguring.
Right. So my question really is with that, and you coming around, you're using that bypass lane, you're coming around, and then you have to make a left, kind of, you have to bend, to get, is that gonna be enough space for a driver to be driving around and not hit that concrete support for that covering?
Yes, but I can certainly look into that, and on the updated plans, I can provide some additional detail. for that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking it might just be a tight, too tight of a turn that someone's gonna clip it, maybe the entrance to the driveway comes a little bit closer to the street, or however you have to do that. I could just see someone hitting that thing.
It's a very good suggestion, I can take a look at that.
Okay, and I'm not sure if you'd be the person to answer this, but I know currently with the current Dunkin' Donuts, I assume that there is a parking agreement with the bank of where you are proposed in the, I guess it's on the music school side, where the ADA spots are. I assume there's some sort of a parking agreement between the current Dunkin' Donuts and that.
My understanding is there either is or was. I'm not sure the current status of it. I'm pretty confident that it won't be carried forward once the.
That's my question. Is
Once
that going to
there's
cause a
relocation.
problem with parking
No.
for the music school / bank? Okay. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Ryan. Mr. Esposito.
I'm done.
Mr. Cray?
Yeah, one question, I've got a personal interest in this one. The bus stop currently, the only time you need to be under the shelter is when it rains. Whenever it rains, the structure underneath the concrete structure becomes a pool. And it becomes a pool because all the drainage coming down off the property pools behind it, okay? There's the depressed curb, the sidewalk comes down to it, but when it starts raining, you can see that all is graded out to the street and then it runs down and into the grate. Once it rains long enough and hard enough, this property, all the drainage pools down on the back of it, and it comes down around the sides outside the concrete. When it gets high enough, it even comes over it and it fills up that shelter. So when that's removed, just attention to the grading with the bus stop is going to be important because it's literally unusable when it rains right now. So just a note to pay attention to it. Question about the loading. You said that it would be, trash would be picked up at off hours. Kind of want to understand what that means. Off hours, if hours are 5 o'clock to 11 o'clock, when is that trash and when is the deliveries and all that going to happen?
Sure. Again, the peak hours, you'll hear more testimony from the traffic engineer about what the AM, PM, and afternoon peak hours are. We would work around those hours for any deliveries or trash pickup. So I would say, we would say that maybe that's testimony better for the traffic engineer, and they could fill in those blanks for you.
Okay, I guess I just wanted to understand that off hours didn't necessarily mean non-business hours, that it was going to start happening at 4 o'clock in the morning, there'd be trash trucks out there.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean close of business.
Okay.
1 second, Michael. Is your intention to also have the owners testify? That we can ask the owners questions about the business and the timings and so forth?
I hadn't considered that, but if it's something the board's
It would be something I think the board would like to hear from, right? Sure. Yeah, I think it would be a really good idea. Go ahead, I'll continue, I'm sorry.
Simply, on the bank music studio side, there's a note that says directional sign, enter only drive-through, which would be confusing to me if I'm coming and I'm a music studio person. It's gonna, if I look at that and I say enter only drive-through, it's like, all right, I'm going to the bank, that's gonna feed me into the drive-through. I'm gonna keep going and then try to take a right into the next entrance. That sign, I mean, I'm not sure the purpose of that sign is saying drive-through.
Sure, we can take a look at that. Maybe I can separate the drive-through wayfinding sign to the rear of the building so that it's not misleading. That, I like that suggestion. We can leave it as an enter only, and then move that drive-through element possibly to the rear of the property
Right.
where it's more strategically located.
Right. And then the other sign above that that says proposed do not enter sign, I'm assuming that's facing the parking lot so people aren't trying to exit through the entrance, right? Okay. Yeah, that's all I got, thank you.
Please.
So I'm gonna push you over curfew.
We are already over curfew, but I'm gonna let you continue.
Okay. Quick clarification. Next to your outdoor dining are two barbells. Pictorially, that's the bike rack?
Next to the outdoor seating, we have that's where I'm
It's not
located.
labeled, is that the bike rack?
Yes, it's
Okay.
adjacent to
All
the
right.
triangular landscape.
All right, okay. All right. Applicant's you're proposing outdoor dining now. Tom, can we grant outdoor dining, or must they get a special permit or something?
It may have been my recommendation that they provided, but my understanding right at this very second is that it would be allowed without a permit. We have a separate permitting process for outdoor dining on sidewalks and within parking areas for seasonal use. This is on private property in a designated area for outdoor dining, so based on that, I believe it would be permitted
So,
by ordinance.
so this board can permit it?
That's my understanding.
They don't need anything special?
That would be my understanding.
Okay. We quickly discussed the EV parking, that you're gonna need one, and you would choose it. Let us choose it. I'm suggesting that the EV parking go in the northwest corner of your property, back up there where it returns. Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, I'm sorry, northwest corner?
Right up there, yeah. Let's put it there. You got room on the side, you can put a stanchion and everything, and I don't really wanna put it anywhere else and give EV parking, a reserved spot closer to the front door. So, let's commit to that now.
I don't have an issue with it, as long as it follows the state statute.
No, I have an issue. Let's put it there. Who's gonna choose it?
I'm fine with it.
Who's gonna
I can work
choose it?
with your board professionals on the
Okay.
location.
Unless Mr. Costa says otherwise, okay?
Well, I think the answer is we're happy to put it anywhere you'd like as long as the law allows us to.
Yeah, but I think this board should reserve the right to choose it.
I
Okay,
don't
case closed.
particularly care where it goes as long as
Okay.
it complies.
Good, good. Otherwise, you're tying up a spot closer to the front door.
I still put gas in my car, it's okay.
Well, I'm still working on rubber bands, okay? Okay, so the outdoor dining we took care of. Let's quickly look at your retaining walls. Up in the, upper corner of the Dunkin' Donuts, yes, up in there. You've kicked around, and your drawing right now shows that your segmental walls are not being constructed. We kind of kicked around other materials. I think that segmental walls are ideal for this site with the rustic setting in the back rather than a masonry block wall or concrete wall, which are subject to graffiti, okay? Number one. Number two, I suggest that you go look at that corner. You got some very high walls, 9 and 10 feet. You might want to terrace it there around that corner, and we could plant a terrace and with some landscaping, and I think it would look very nice. I'd like you to study that if possible.
I can look into that. I just don't know if I'll have the room for the tie-back on a terraced wall. That's why I had it as a single wall.
Yeah, but if you're going in with another masonry wall, you're gonna go 3 feet deeper, and then you're gonna start getting into other problems. But I'm gonna let you work out the design. I think it can be done. Just that corner.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so we got, yeah, the same wall, those same retaining walls, you've got water pouring down that hillside, in the back there. Can you look at the drainage there, and we might need a gully or something to pick that up, to keep it from flowing over the walls?
Sure.
I think we've had some other, similar occurrences in town where we basically had to put a gully up in the same situation. I think you should look at that.
Sure.
Likewise, along the top of those retaining walls on the other side beyond any kind of a gully, can you consider landscaping material that will eventually grow over and hang over the wall?
Aesthetic?
Okay.
Aesthetically, I don't have.
I haven't looked at your landscaping new plan, but it certainly would blend that whole thing in eventually. Okay, I'm trying to move along fast because of you make, so we got that. EV we took, we got that. We kicked around the walk-up window. I'm still very, very concerned about that, and I believe you said in response to Mr. Costa, you would see what you could do over there. Is that correct?
Yes, I talked about possibly, well, I testified about the possibility of putting a sidewalk.
See what you can do, because that is a serious safety problem, especially with youngsters coming on their bicycles after school, rushing, and as Mr. DeVecchio said, I believe, in your own words so much, that everybody's gonna take a shortcut, which means they're gonna go right across that driveway. Also, in looking at that area, would it make some sense, and I'm not so certain it would work, but opposite the window in the lawn area, if you put a bike rack for some of those children that might be using it, rather than, they usually ride up and dump their bikes on the ground. They might wind up using it. Look into that.
And where did you want that one?
Opposite the walk-up window, in the lawn area, if we put a bike rack.
Out here?
Yeah, out there. I'm just wondering if that might help the situation.
I really don't want any people in there at all.
Okay. No, all right. And I'm not so certain they'd be using it anyway, all right?
And
Okay.
I'll certainly look at another sidewalk coming in, but that presents a problem, because now I'm gonna have to open up this area, walk-up window for access to cross safely
All right.
across the drive-through to get there. We talked about railing to enclose that
Okay.
entire area. So, again, I think it's problematic to add another point of access from a sidewalk point of view. I think where we have it is the safest location, and I'm limiting it to one location, not two.
Okay, all right. Discussion, sufficient discussion, all right. Tell me what you're doing with the sidewalk in the front. It seems like wherever you destroy it, you're laying another piece, another concrete ribbon.
Within the county right of way?
Yeah,
They're gonna have to do streetscape.
Yeah,
They get a streetscape.
we will follow not only what the county tells us to do about sidewalk replacement, but we will also follow the streetscape.
Okay,
If we
well,
have to replace it, we'll replace
I
it.
think the planner suggested or recommended streetscape. You got about 360 plus feet of frontage there, and that's a sizable length. I would like to see a streetscape while you're going in there. Let's do it correctly.
It's becoming required. I mean, I brought that up before.
What was that?
It'll be required. I brought that up before. They
Well,
already
okay,
said
so
they would do
We're
that.
on record totally.
Yep.
So you're gonna replace that with a streetscape, and you'll work with Mr. Costa, he'll give you our details. Oh. Okay, great. Other than reviewing your other landscape submittal, that's about what I have for tonight.
Thank you.
See, I listen to you, you don't listen to me.
I don't listen to my
Chief,
own-
do you have any questions? Chief?
No, not tonight.
No? You're good? Colin?
Just real brief, real fast. Quick question, I know we've talked a lot about the southern, coming from the north or coming down south is where you have all the kids after school. So can you, like, what prevents you from going between the parking lots? Right across there, yeah?
That's a dense evergreen section through there. You'd have a tough time getting through there.
A dense evergreen?
Yeah.
What would be an example of a dense evergreen?
If you look at that, the view.
So you're saying that like people, like kids, like a 13, 14-year-old kid wouldn't be able to circumnavigate that?
I mean, look, if you're determined to get through landscaping, you're gonna get through it. But we would deter to go through there. I mean, if that's really a concern, we could look at some fencing.
I'm making an observation that I think people are gonna be at the bank and wanna cut over and go to Dunkin' Donuts, and kids are gonna leave the middle school and come down and either cut across the parking lot or come across the, or try to take a shortcut in. It's an observation. I think we're gonna have foot traffic there.
I would do my best to prevent them from doing that.
Okay.
So if it means me putting a fence to.
At overtime tonight.
To separate the two, that's what I'll do. I would not put an access.
Okay.
Pedestrian access to it.
Yeah, because then that would be a whole, okay, got it.
I would force everyone back out to the county right way.
Okay. And then the last, just echoing Ryan and Eileen's comments, it seems very congested with cars coming in and then cars coming out of the drive-through and then also leaving the parking lot on the left-hand side, right? There are going to be 2 lanes of traffic coming down. The people in the drive-through, the people who went into the building.
This is for the Dunkin' Donuts side?
Yeah.
Yes, we have a drive-up position, and then you do have to bypass.
Me too.
For any pedestrian, or any customers that had parked, went into the facility, and then now are leaving.
So there's going to be 3 cars at that 30-foot driveway.
No, at the 30-foot driveway, no, it's just a car in and a car out.
Oh, right, but the other car is gonna be next to him who went into the, like, there's gonna be a car coming out, and there's gonna be a car right next to him who's also trying to come out.
No.
Maybe I'm not being clear.
Sure.
There's gonna be a car that's going through the drive-through.
Sure. Do you want to
And-
come up and?
Yeah, sure. There's a car that's, coming through the drive-through, and then this guy is gonna leave the parking space, and he's gonna come around, so there's gonna be like 2 cars here. And then there's gonna be a car coming in, and these 2 guys would have to go 1 and 1. That's
They get,
So
that's
good
the
to me.
point of that striped island, is to push this aisle is lined up more with the bypass, and it has to push the order queuing line into that bypass lane.
Yeah, I'm just, there will be 2 cars here. Car here and a car here, and
Oh,
they'll
yeah,
have
there will
to
be
take
2 cars,
turns.
yeah.
So it's gonna get congested.
Yeah, I mean, one person is stopped picking up their food, the other person is free flowing.
Right, no.
And we do, I mean, You know, I can put an additional stop sign at the drive-through. The bypass has the right of way.
Okay, I don't know how they know that, but, okay.
So I think with a stop sign, and possibly a stop bar, that could help with that.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Bastide. You know, when this was first presented to me, I looked at it, it looked like a really fine project, but I'm having a really tough time wrapping my arms around this drive-through. It's creating parking issues, it's creating noise issues. I'm having a big problem with it, so I'm looking forward to hearing from the traffic expert to try to alleviate some of the concerns that I have. But it sounds like everything that the board has brought up so far has been all related to the drive-through. Whether it's parking, whether it's handicap parking being blocked, or parallel parking being stuffed in the corner so you can get 2 more spots. A huge parking deficiency of almost 25 cars, 40 minus 15, I think my math is correct. I'm having a tough time with it. And that's why I asked for your operators to come so I can hear what their idea is with operation and when the garbage is going to be picked up, so there's not a garbage truck back there at 3 o'clock in the morning, waking all the neighbors up so that at 5 o'clock they can hear the orders coming through. I'm just having a real tough time with it. This property, I was hoping when I first heard of this, that Dunkin' Donuts was going to move into where the bank is, because it's just, the bank seems more applicable to what you're trying to accomplish than shoehorning this building into the parking lot with nothing left but a building and a drive-through, particularly a 2-lane drive-through. So I look forward to hearing from your traffic expert. You've heard my concerns. I don't know how you fix them. You've heard from the rest of the board. And again, I think the majority of the board members' questions, even though they didn't specifically mention the drive-through, were all related to the drive-through. And I'm sure our chief of police is sitting there saying to himself, how am I going to stop the cars from backing up on Kinderkamack? So these are issues that I have. I'm hoping they're issues that you'll have, and then you'll go back and come up with some kind of solution for us at the next meeting. I'm going to entertain a motion open to the public at this point.
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed, any abstain? We'll start in the back, with 2 folks in the last row. Anybody want to say anything? The next to the last row?
I just want to make one comment.
You'll have to come up and talk. Please give us your name, your address, and spell your last name for the record, please.
Marilyn Benson, Bensen, and I am neighboring Dunkin' Donuts on Midland Ave, the 8-unit apartment building. My concern is really the retaining walls and the blockage of water. And I'm wondering, are you allowing for drainage holes and stuff? There's already been some blocking walls, the drainage holes that were there existing.
Yes, that new retaining wall will be fully compliant. There's not,
What's compliant?
well, there's really insufficient drainage on the site to begin with.
Correct.
We're improving that greatly. We're having on-site detention. And
Well, right now it's
pick
being
up-
blocked. It's being partially blocked from
Yeah,
coming
it
downhill,
will.
which is a problem.
We will fix that as
Okay.
part of the improvements. We will not have any ponding problems at the high side of that wall.
Okay.
We'll have all the proper drainage in there. We will not have that.
Okay, that's my one thing. The other thing I just want to mention, I don't know if this is the right timing or not, but the 11 o'clock time concerns me a bit. And the reason is you have a lot of kids that hang around, and that's what they're going to do. And it's a residential area. And you've got closing at 11 o'clock and a bunch of kids hanging around in a residential area. It doesn't really, I'm not a fan of it. I don't know what can be done about it. I think it will happen. That's just my comment.
I think when the owners are testifying, it might be a better time for you to
Yeah,
discuss
yeah,
it with them.
okay.
All right?
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Next row, with my handsome clerk there. Anything? No? We'll go, okay.
Me again.
You'll just have to do the same thing over again until we know who you are.
Deborah Powell, POWELL, 69 Christie Avenue.
Can I ask you something real quick?
Sure.
In relation to Kindermack Road, where's your house located?
It's down from the bank.
Would you
Just
say 2 houses, 3 houses?
Two houses. There's a house in between me and the bank.
The bank, okay.
Okay.
So I have an idea where you are.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's a cut through and, you know, a lot of lights from the bank already and all. But you referred to, where is that other Dunkin' Donut? You mentioned you're modeling a 2-lane after. And
Sure. Bob, what was the address that we looked at for that Dunkin' with the 2 drive-throughs?
McDonald's.
Oh,
No,
sorry,
McDonald's
it was
in town.
McDonald's. I apologize.
It's
Oh,
a similar design as the McDonald's.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if Duncan plagiarized from them or vice versa, but that's.
Well, because there is one on Cedar Lane in Teaneck, and I find, on my commute, that backed up. I don't know if it's a 1 or 2 lane, but it's backed up onto a 4-lane road, and it blocks the 1 lane totally, which we don't have that space on Kindermack, as it's only 2 lane. And so, anyway, I guess we'll be talking about more of that in the traffic study. The only other thing I wondered whether a bus bay was ever thought of for alleviating some of the congestion on Kindermack Road for vehicles going south.
What?
A bus pull-off or a bus bay,
Well,
since you're
I don't
reconfiguring.
think that has anything to do with the application as far as bus.
Depressing the bus stop, I think she's referring.
Oh, okay.
Right, so reconfiguring the road, so it would, you've done it on other areas on Kindermack, you
I
know.
might suggest you talk to our engineer after the meeting,
Okay.
see what he has to say. That would be a county issue, I'm thinking. and-
Well, you don't have the
don't have
land.
room.
We couldn't do it, you don't have the land there.
Yeah.
So they would have to volunteer the land
Right.
in order to do it.
In front of the bank building?
I think, you know, listening to, obviously, the board members' comments, the public, Andy, the biggest thing is the traffic. Whether or not your traffic guy is gonna come in to figure out, and I'm looking at the chief, whether or not you're gonna have the queuing that's gonna keep the cars out of Kindermack. Because if you go down to Hackensack, which I do every morning, that queues right into the roadway. And there's a lot more, and I'm sure you go past the same Dunkin' Donuts in the morning. And I would imagine that one has definitely more queuing than what you're showing. You're showing 6 cars to queue to get up to the EDA
I know the one you're talking about on River.
every morning.
Yeah.
They're in the road.
It doesn't. I think it has room for about 3 cars.
No.
I-
The one in Hackensack?
Yeah, I know that one. I know the layout. I know it comes.
They
up-
queue into the road.
Oh, I know.
That's what I'm trying to say. So the queuing is definitely more than 3 cars.
No, I'm
Can
just saying. I
go
think
into
they
the
only have
parking lot.
room-
And you physically can't get into the parking lot.
And I agree with you 100%. That's not the situation here.
Right. My colleague next to me goes to Ramsey, to the Dunkin' Donuts, and I think it's a similar design that I gave you guys a while ago, having a separate driveway.
It works very well, not to
Right.
cut you off. It has essentially a very similar layout to what you're doing. The caveat is that it has 2 driveways. I know you have to work that out with the county, but you have obvious problems. It sounds like the traffic expert may not be able to adequately address them. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. The board has offered some suggestions. I think you need to regroup and try to figure it out. That's my recommendation.
And the only other thing is 20 cars, queued up. I haven't heard any or read anything about pollution. What kind of, unless everybody's driving a Tesla, but the pollution that's generated with cars sitting there. So,
Okay.
And they don't have to redesign.
Also, Tom, we're sitting here, and maybe the solution is to come through the bank, and that gives you the queuing.
Get rid of that,
Shared access.
Get rid of
the
shared
linear,
access,
the
so
wall, and,
You'll have
yeah.
2 driveways, or 3 driveways, similar to what you would have now. But your main entry would come at the north end, so you make it more like a strip mall. And you would queue in the back of the other. You're shaking your head no. You can't use Kinderkamak Road as your queue. It's not going to work. And unless there's gonna be a magical testimony, I truly doubt in the morning that these cars will not be in Kinderkamak Road. And that's only based on what I see down the road when I go to my office every single morning.
And on that note, do we have anybody in the front that would like to speak?
Just to that issue, actually, the concern is that the current ingress on the northerly side is only 9.7 feet from the ingress to the current Dunkin' Donuts. If that were to back up, that ingress, it would block the ingress to the current Dunkin' Donuts site. And that's a major concern to my clients. So I think that has to be kept in mind as well. So however many cars are gonna be able to get in there. I think what we have is, and I forget how the saying goes, but it's, 10 pounds of flour in a 5-pound bag. I think that's what's going on here. It's
I
really
will
simple.
interject, I mean, this is time
He's
for
allowed to,
questions.
he's allowed to stick his piece, he's just
He's allowed to
a
ask
person.
questions at this point.
Yeah,
It's
he-
really not time for commentary, and, I'll make my objection known, subject to your ruling, but I will make my objection.
Are you finished?
Yeah, so I
Mr.
just
Barrett?
think if you're gonna look at it, if you look at that issue as well, please.
And there's a question. Okay. That said, we're going to move to our next meeting. I can go to my clerk. Do you know when the next opportunity is, or should they call you tomorrow?
Our next meeting, he's scheduled as the only application on the meeting, which is, I think it's June 8th.
Okay, are you good with that?
Yes, we had prearranged that with your clerk.
Yeah.
Okay. And you'll have traffic? Who else will you be bringing that night?
Well, I think Bill will be back for sure, and I will be discussing your request for operational testimony.
Okay. Anybody else have anything from the board? We need to close from the public, right? We got to do that. Can I get a motion to close from the
So
public?
moved.
The second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? Okay. All right, folks, thank you for coming. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
And Mr. Delvecchio, do you extend the timeframes for the board to act?
We will extend through the June 8th meeting.
Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed, any abstain? Thank you.